for the kings of the outside lane, the ones who conquer the mountain and the rain. The Logisticize 104 is calling out your name for the grit in your teeth and the pride in the frame. Moving the bones of the cities yet to rise with the highway burning in your steady eye. Oh, it ain't just cargo bolted to a trailer floor. Oh, it's a pulse of the country knocking in at the door. Oh, they see an oversized sign and they pull to the side, but they don't know the mastery deep in the ride. From the trust to the corner to the long haul climb, you're punching the clock against the hammer of time. The asphalt's a teacher and the lessons are hard, measuring the inches in a gravel strewn yard. You navigate the turns where the weak carts fail, leaving a silver streak on a lonesome trail. New millenniums pass with their hands on the gear, filtering the static till the mission is clear. No room for the timid when the tonnage gets high, just the roar of the engine under a wide open sky. This is for the kings of the outside lane, the ones who conquer the mountain and the rain. The Logisticize 104 is calling out your name for the grit in your teeth and the pride in the frame. Moving the bones of the cities you're too.
All right, welcome everybody to another podcast here on the Logisticize 104. I am joined again in studio for part two of Mr. Mike Akerman. Hey, Mike, how we doing?
Well, I'm here.
You're here.
Yes.
Upright, alive, breathing, all good.
Woke up today.
You woke up today? You woke up here?
Yes.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
It was a good thing.
It was a good thing.
Yes.
Yeah, because you did have a little trouble getting here in that last final mile, as we heard in the previous podcast. So this one right here is going to be a little bit different. This one's going to be more of Mike's story.
Wow.
And as much as that scares me to death, when we're going to put this out on a public forum, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Hopefully, it will be for you. You did great on the last one. Thank you for participating. I think it's good for the younger generation out there to see kind of how the way it was. So, purpose of this is let's see where Mike started at. So back in 1847, when they I don't think they had combustion motors then. Well, I'm not sure when that came out.
They had chain drive.
Chain drive. So
Yeah.
you pedal the damn truck up and down the road.
Yeah.
No, but back when you were young. I know that we discussed the last one that you got started 18 years old. You went to the Ford Motor Company. That was your first job out of high school, right?
Yes.
Okay, so
And it was a good job.
I was gonna say, yeah, good job, good pay, good benefits. I mean, everyone around here, if you're anywhere in our area, everyone knows General Motors. Mm-hmm. Not only for Defiance, but me being from Indiana, Roanoke, Indiana, you have the big truck assembly plant, and you know the kids that their dads worked there had nicer stuff.
Yes, they did.
So,
Yes, they did.
So those are good jobs. They were coveted jobs, and it wasn't the easiest to get into at times.
No, I was very fortunate that one of the fellows that I went to school with, his dad worked there, and my uncle also worked there.
Okay.
And of course, they knew each other. And my friend's dad, and he worked there too, my friend. His dad got him a job there, and they pulled and got me in there. And if you didn't have somebody pulling for you, you wasn't going to get in there.
And you had mentioned that it was $7.35 an hour?
$7.35 an hour.
Now, to put that in perspective, what year was that?
That was in 1972.
1972. So when I was a young idiot, I went to get a job in high school because I wanted more money than what my parents were giving me. And not that they couldn't, but they were trying to teach me to value money, which thankfully they did. But My first jobs in high school it was for a grocery store in our local town. I made $4.20 an hour. And that was minimum wage in the state of Indiana. So even back then in what was it? Again, I can't remember that far back.
72.
72. I thought you said 52.
No.
All right. Well, my memory's going bad too. That comes with age. But that was pretty good. Like you said, it was full benefits.
Oh, yeah.
It was retirement and everything. So, what crossed your path? I know we discussed it a little bit in the last one, but what crossed your path that says, okay, I think this is going to be better? What made that decision for you? What was the switch in your brain that said, I'm going to leave this job that everybody wants for the benefits and stuff? It may not be the most glamorous job at the Ford plant, but you knew that you're going to have a comfortable life. That'd be the best way to put it.
Well, I think the main thing was my dad had drove truck. He used to haul hay down to Kentucky to the racehorse farms.
Okay.
My brother-in-law used to haul hogs and beef and sheep up to Detroit to the market, and I rode with him quite a few times.
Okay.
But the fellow that I was talking about that got me in over at Ford,
Yeah.
he had a big Ford station wagon. We would carpool, and of course he had a CB radio in there. And he went to work at 3:30 to midnight, but my shift didn't start till 4 o'clock. I worked from 4 o'clock to midnight, got paid for the full 8 hours, even, took my supper, whatever.
Yep.
But I had a job where I actually worked a half hour on and a half hour off. I was working in a piston house. And
so wait, you have to, for every hour, you only had to work 30 minutes?
Yes.
That sounds like a Ford Motor Company job.
Well, it was a mentally taxing job because we were running, they said like 3.9 motors per minute, V8s.
Okay.
Now, I don't know whoever got that 0.9 motor, but, but
hopefully they put it in a Mustang.
Yeah, obviously, on the V8s, so they had 8 pistons for each motor.
Yeah.
And each one had a different bore size. They may be off 1,000th here, 1,000th there, and you'd have a 1 under, a 1 over. And a lot of people think, it's just pistons going into motors, but they are various sizes.
Okay.
And so it had a printout would come down, and you would have a rack, and behind you would have all these different bore size pistons, and so you would have to get those and put them in the 8 racks for as it went down the line. Then they would put a connecting rod onto it, and
on down the assembly line.
On down.
Yep.
So it got to that appropriate motor, and you had to have those right pistons in the right order. So you had to be very mentally focused.
So for all of us that have had a brand new vehicle, I know I've talked to a couple guys here. One that comes to mind is a Chevy pickup. What happens when that stuff doesn't match up and that gets out to the customer?
Well, it's a warranty
Is it
situation.
a problem?
Yeah, it's a warranty situation for sure. But they test around every motor. When the motors are built, they test run them before they ship them out. And this was not a complete vehicle assembly plant. This was just an engine assembly.
Motor plant, yep.
Yes.
Yep, down in Lima.
Yeah.
Yep.
So they would assemble them and test run them and crate them and send them out to the vehicle manufacturer. But like I say, it was and they checked too. They kept an eye on you.
Yeah.
But you would work a half hour and your mind was shot at the end of a half hour.
Just keeping track of all the numbers, the sequence and everything.
Yeah.
There's a lot to look at.
Yeah.
Kind of like driving a truck. There's a lot to look at all the time, and mentally gets fatiguing.
Well, 4 times 8 is 32, right?
Yes.
So you're doing 32 different pistons
individual
in a minute.
Okay. Wow.
So, you've got like 2 seconds to make sure you got the right piston in the right rack.
So you had to make quick decisions. Now, was there any pre-planning to that? Did you get the paperwork ahead of time to where you might know what order it's coming down the line to where you could set yourself up, or
No.
were you reliant upon other components of the assembly line coming at you, and you had to say, okay, pluck from these conveyors or however they got them to you, baskets?
Yeah, well, at that point in time, I'm sure it's changed now, but at that point in time, you would have a little printout.
Okay.
Like a cash register receipt.
Okay.
And you would have the rack come down, and the printout would be right there with that rack.
Yeah.
So you had basically 2 seconds to fill each piston. And at the end of a half hour, you was ready for a break. So, but I would work a half hour on, half hour off.
Okay.
And what I would do is I would go out and sit in his station wagon and listen to the CB radio of the truckers out on I-75, which was a mile and a half
I was gonna say,
from the Ford plant.
Yeah, not very far. So plenty within range of hearing all that radio traffic.
Yeah. So, of course, it sounded a lot more glamorous than what it actually was.
Doesn't it always?
Yes. But I got so burned out. And this was a job that I actually bid on.
Okay.
Because it paid good. And, you know, everybody's got their own, you know, expectations, like we said.
Yep.
So I'm thinking, well, I go to work from 4 to midnight. I only got to be there 8 hours. And I'm actually only going to work 4 of it.
Yep, I was going to say.
You know, I didn't think of the mental strain that was going to be on me. You know, have to make those decisions that quick. And you had to be right. But it paid better than, you know.
Sure.
You know.
Than most jobs around at that point in time, I would imagine.
Right. So, you know, of course, listening to the CB radio, and these guys ain't got no stress. You know. They aren't.
I'm not sure that's the case.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the ones I was hearing.
Yeah. No, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
The radio traffic you were pulling in sounded like just a camaraderie at that point in time, I'm assuming, and they were helping each other out, and I could see that.
Yeah. It sounded like they don't have somebody looking over their shoulder.
Yeah.
You know, and if they make a mistake, they can correct it within a mile up the road.
Yep.
You know? So it seemed to me, and of course my dad and my brother-in-law, they've always been happy driving trucks, so it seemed to me at the time, you know.
Good direction to go.
Yeah. And, you know, probably it wasn't one of my best choices I've made in my life, because it ended up costing me a marriage that, you know, was all my fault.
Boy, if we get into the stories of truck drivers and marriages, it would be a long list. But what that tells me is, and it's something that we talked about a little bit in the other podcast, was, did you necessarily know what you wanted that time, or fully knew what you were getting into? Or was it, like you said, the grass seemed greener because they sounded like they were having a good time, or however you perceived it when you're listening to that, and come to find out you obviously made the decision to switch into trucking and started learning, obviously, the trade. But you had exposure to it beforehand. Did you were you disappointed when you got into it, or did you adjust to what the reality was versus the expectation?
I think for me, it was more, I knew what I was getting out of.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
You know, I wasn't so concerned about, you know, I knew that by changing, I was going to take a big pay cut.
Okay, yeah.
But I had a good income up to that point, so I was sitting pretty good. You got to remember, my house payments at that time was $97.50 a month.
Well, I remember as an ex-wife of mine that I was talking to her dad one time when I was looking at purchasing a home. I was in the middle of a process starting to search. His first brand new home, and I mean brand new, was $18,000.
Yeah.
I mean, mind you, that dates him a little bit, and it was a small, modest, you know, just starter home. Yeah. So it's nothing fancy, but you can't buy a car. You cannot buy a brand new car right now for that price at all. And people were buying homes back then for that.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't concerned about the money I was making. I was more concerned with my mental stability.
Which is pretty forward thinking for a gentleman, no offense, of your age back at that time.
Well, I don't know whether it was because I had thought it out or I just couldn't take it anymore.
Okay, fair.
You know?
Yeah.
So I'm not taking credit for, you know, being some smart intellectual, you know,
yeah, but you still had to have
person with insight.
Yeah, but you still had to have self-awareness at least at that point to say, okay, I'm leaving this stable life, and I'm going to venture into the unknown.
Yeah.
So
I just decided this is something that I could probably do.
Okay.
I love to drive, and I've seen my dad, my brother-in-law, you know, and everybody's eating.
Yep.
So I went to a couple of the local grain haulers in Ohio City,
Said you played, last podcast said you placed a couple calls and you were interested to see, hey, is anybody looking for anyone? I'm trying to get into this. And were you, and I believe you said that one of them were like, go see this person.
Yeah, Jonestown Elevator.
Okay.
They've got a truck and trailer and they're looking for a driver. So I said, okay, good enough. I went out to Jonestown Elevator and I seen Wayne Gamble. And I said, I heard you're looking for a truck driver. He said, are you a truck driver? I said, well, I could be.
Teach me how.
I said, I've never seen anything I couldn't drive. I grew up on the farm working for farmers. I drove their tractors and their straight trucks. And he said, come on out here. And had a 40-foot Great Dane spread axle flatbed with side kit.
Okay.
Had a 73 International cab over 4070A, 318, 13 speed. This truck only had 13,000 miles on it. It's a 73, and this is in 74.
Pretty new then, yeah.
Yeah.
Boy, and you get to train in that thing, or you get to learn in that? That would be good.
He says, let's go out here. He said, unhook the trailer. I said, all right. So I fiddle farted around, and I got the trailer unhooked, and he said, all right, let's take it down the road. So we went down the road there, Jonestown Road, and went down a couple miles, turned around, come back. He said, okay, hook it back up. And so he hooked it up, and I fiddle farted around, got it hooked up. He said, when can you start? I said, when you want me. He said, tomorrow we go to Iowa.
It was we, though?
Yeah, he was going with me.
He was going with you, make sure you were all right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, and I I'm joking with the Stone Age.
No.
I know. You just have a lot of experience, a lot of wisdom, just trying to have a little fun with that. But it was a lot different back then to get started.
Yeah.
Now, at least in the state of Ohio, Indiana, around us, you are forced to go to a driving school. And if you relinquish your CDL and you go a year without it, not even that, let's just say your med certification expires and you don't renew it, after a year, you no longer can carry that CDL. Used to be, you were fine, just get your med card, come back on in, you're all good. But now if you wait that year, it's right back to truck driving school or you can't get a CDL.
Well, back then, I had no chauffeur's license, no CDL, no med card, It was, can you drive the truck?
At night.
Yeah. Can you haul steel? My very first load was a load out of Cuckler, Iowa, was a fabricated steel building inside the flatbed with side kit.
Okay.
So he rode with me.
Now, for those of us that don't know, and I don't know, and I probably should know this, what's a side kit on a flatbed?
A side kit is actually 4-foot high pieces of plywood with stakes that goes in it.
So you were creating basically what we see running around here hauling tomatoes around, where you're creating a basket in there, essentially.
It had the bows that run across it, the aluminum bows and the tarp over the top.
All right, so kind of like a covered wagon, pretty close to it at that point in time.
Right.
All right.
So you could haul flatbed products, or you could haul grain. Randy Bevington, a friend of mine from Ohio City, he was a couple years younger than me. He actually went with me to Cincinnati one time, to Purina, and we picked up a load of dog food. And the big story was the guys on the dock kept saying, but this is a grain truck. This is a grain truck. I said, yeah, I know what it is. Just I'll back in the dock and I'll throw the tarp over and you put the dog food in there, But they were shocked because I was in there with a grain truck.
Well, that's when you used to be able to, as a freight hauler, be a little more diverse. Yeah. Nowadays, they don't even want to give you a load unless you have this exact specific piece of equipment. It must be 10 years or newer. It must be this, and this. Mm-hmm. So you were able to probably experience a lot more back then, even with just that one trailer, because you're able to do so much with it.
Well, yeah, and you learned a lot.
Definitely.
You were learning on the fly, because this is all new to me, but it's new to most other people too, just like they had never loaded one of these trucks before like this. They was only used to loading vans.
So they're learning with you.
Yeah. So yeah, it was a learning experience. But we took off. We went to Iowa. We untarped it, threw the bows back, and loaded a steel building. And I don't even think we changed down inside the trailer.
Oh man.
Yeah. But
so clearly regulations were a little different.
Yes, they were a lot different.
And there are probably not as many scale houses and not as many DOT officers running around.
Yeah.
So, at that point, they didn't need as much regulations.
No, but if there was a scale house, it was usually open.
So they weren't government funded and half closed all the time, not trying to protect any of the citizens.
Right, right. And there was no DOT pulling you over on the shoulder of the road either, you know?
Just unheard of.
Yeah, there were portable scales.
Yeah.
Where they would, you know, sit up here on 24 and get us grain haulers, you know, and because we was getting paid by the bushel, we was always overloaded. But they would.
I'm not sure that's changed much anymore around to today, because you see a lot of back road running, and I didn't experience as much as over where I was at. But now that I'm in a heavy farming community, there's some grain bins around here, and I see them running around constantly, and they run around like their ass is on fire. I just seen one driving out of here. It was literally in between doing the last podcast and us sitting down to record this one, hauling ass out of town at 50 miles an hour and just floored going by here. So evidently it's like hauling a bull rack. They just leave you alone.
Yeah. Well, they watched us pretty good, but we would get away with it.
Okay.
Yeah. And sometimes we'd go up 75 and cut off at Signet Road and go up and get on Route 6, go around that scale up there at Bowling Green, and, you know, they'd be sitting on Signet Road with scales, with portable scales.
Waiting on you.
Yeah.
Yep.
So a lot of times we'd do things like put a dummy truck in front of us, you know, and let them get the first guy, and the second guy was way overloaded, you know, and while they're messing around with the guy that's legal, we drive by, you know.
It reminded me of a funny story. So when I was younger, obviously much dumber, much, you know, I was a young, stupid kid partying. I mean, I'll admit it, right out of high school. We used a designated drunk decoy. So we'd send a decoy out before all of us would be running through the country trying to get to the houses. Now, mind you, that doesn't happen anymore. I don't really even drink that much anymore, but just kind of reminded me, I was sitting there thinking about the last bonfire I was at as a kid where we pulled that stunt. And yeah, good times.
Yeah. Well, I don't drink anymore, any more than I used to.
Well, I had to dial it back. It seemed to be an issue for me that I needed to get in check.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, I don't drink anymore. But I drank enough in my lifetime that you know, I'm probably still got some in my veins.
Now, I still will on occasion, like at the summer blast up here. I'll usually have a few beers, and if I get out of town, Emily and I'll have one drink. But man, I remember the days where if you cracked one, it's done.
Yeah.
My night was going to be in the yard or in someone else's yard, laying down sleeping. So just had to get it under control.
Well, it's sad to say, but I drove a lot of miles in a truck, intoxicated, where I shouldn't have
been driving.
Yeah, I shouldn't have been even awake.
Life lessons. I know I learned them, and I know the state of Indiana made me learn them.
Well, when you're young, you think you're bulletproof.
You do,
and nothing can fake you.
Yep, absolutely.
You know? And you're not worried about anything. You know, you cut your hand, it'll heal. You know, when you're young, you just think you can get away with anything too.
Man, a few weeks ago, I turned 48 years old. Getting up there, I'm only 2 years away from being able to move into a senior community out in Arizona, and I'm looking forward to it, the peace and serenity. But yeah, I've noticed over the last few years, even my hearing is starting to go. Eyesight, I'm going to probably need readers here pretty soon.
Yeah.
It was a remote control. So Emily and I, and those that don't know, my fiance's name is Emily. Mike, you know her, you've met her. But the remote we had, the original remote for my TV that was like 8 years old, it's in the house, it finally took a crap. It just went bad. And so I had to go buy a new remote. I pop over to Dollar General over there by the Circle K in town and grab the remote, get home, pull the remote out of the package and look at it, and I cannot read the little words that are on there to do any of the functions. I just had to guess for a while. But yeah, you're right. You don't heal like you used to. But when you're young, you don't have that mindset of this is what it's going to be. Like you said, it's bulletproof. And I certainly live that way myself, so I'm guilty of it.
Yeah. Well, another thing, too, you're able to, if you get a new remote, you're able to figure it out. Yep. I have to call my grandkids
to figure it out. You know, I'll give you credit, though. You usually don't have too many questions on the tablets. You don't. I mean, you get through that stuff pretty good. I have to admit. I'm actually kind of shocked. We obviously here at Logisticize, we have a fleet closer to retirement age than we do to inception of career, which I brought up a few times. But all in all, you guys do really, really good, and especially with the pace that technology in our industry is advancing nowadays. I mean, we may think we're up to snuff and we have everything in place this month, and next month they come out with a whole different set of tools that, oh man, this would make it so much easier.
I think I read the other day that there was like 300 electronic logging devices that they've deemed are no good.
Well, do you know why that is? Did you see why that was?
I didn't get the gist of it, but...
So for the FMCSA, if you're an ELD, so say I'm a programmer and I'm programming an ELD program, which could never...
Oh, it was overseas or something, wasn't it?
Well, no, it was the only certification you needed to bring your product live online was there is a registry at the FMCSA that you do online. You check the box and say you're compliant. And nobody was checking. There was no oversight. There was nothing. And it's one of the things we discussed at this last conference was finally someone said, okay, this is enough. Obviously, this is not a very good system. And I get an email weekly or day, I think it's weekly, of the next set that they're removing and they're non-compliant. You can't use them and you have this amount of days to switch to another platform that's compliant. So since the newest transportation secretary came in, they've taken away so many of them, like you said, about 300 plus, and they're not granting anyone any new licenses to be able to put ELD programs out there for us carriers to take a look at, which is a good thing because they had loopholes in them that was allowing carriers to run outside of the hours of service. Now, am I some angel sitting up on my pulpit here? No, I'm not. I made my fair share of outlaw decisions at times, but the reality of it is, and once I got into the management side of things, is someone sat me down and explained to me, sure, that's great. You can go run for an outlaw carrier. You can work 10 times harder for your money than what you should, or work for a carrier that's compliant, runs ELDs. And what happens is when guys are running outside of the law, they can drive their freight rates down.
Yeah.
Because they can run more miles because they're doing it illegally. So what that does for the rest of us in the industry that operate legitimate companies trying to do the right thing is it drives those rates down as well. But our costs don't go down because we still pay for Samsara. We still pay for this and that and everything else to try to do the job right. And it just puts us at a disadvantage at that point in time. And it's putting the entire industry at a disadvantage because these are the laws. We're stuck with them. They're not changing.
Well, that's one thing that's different. It used to be if you were an outlaw, you made more money.
And you were respected for being that outlaw.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, we would run hard.
Yeah.
And I remember at times my logbook would, seriously, for like months, I hadn't touched it. And I just didn't.
I'd have a nervous breakdown if I did.
I got pulled over in Missouri. I had 17 speeding tickets in 1 year.
That's all?
1 year.
Okay.
And so I had to go into the shop for a while and work because they pulled my license. I had too many points. But I got pulled over in Missouri one time.
Yeah.
For speeding. And the cop comes up and he says, I want to see your license, blah, 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 and your logbook. And I said, you really don't want to see my logbook? He said, no, I really do. I said, I haven't touched my logbook in a long time. He said, I'm going back to my car. And he said, I'm going to write you your speeding ticket. He said, when I come back up, I want to see your logbook. So he said, get busy. And I said, okay.
How creative are you?
So I went into my logbook, and I'm, lying like the devil.
Sure.
But I filled out a 7-day log and showed that I had been off duty for 30 days before that. When he came up, he glanced at it, and he said, okay. He said, go on.
He just wanted to see something on paper at that point in time.
Yeah. I mean, he knew that you can't do that today.
No, and I was going to bring that up. I mean, that is definitely a difference in the landscape of how the law is enforced back then and now. And obviously, tragedies attribute to that because you have a couple, affluent people in your county that get caught up in an accident or whatever, and you have someone that does, decease or gets deceased, and they start looking at things a little bit different. They start cracking down because they have to react to that, or else the public's there's going to be an outcry.
Right.
And I think it's one of the things that even relates to the common passenger. It used to be back in the day, my dad told me stories. Oh, we were out in the country, we had beer in the car, and Sheriff what's-his-name pulled me over, and he says, you get the hell home, and I don't want to see you back out the rest of the day.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably true. It just runs across the gamut, like you said.
Oh, yeah. It was, I got pulled over one time. We had a wrecker, big KW wrecker, and was pulling a cab over International out to the Gateway truck stop, St. Louis. Okay. One of our trucks had tore a rear end out.
All right.
So I'm driving the wrecker. I don't know how to run the wrecker, okay? But the guy that was riding with me, he worked for the guy that owned the wrecker, but he couldn't drive the truck, but he could run the wrecker.
So,
so
in tandem, you guys went.
Yeah. So we take off, and we get out to the scale in Illinois right before the Gateway truck stop, and I'd blow the scale because I'm in a wrecker. I'm not driving
I don't have any cargo.
Yeah. Well,
didn't work out.
I didn't make it past the scale before they pulled me over.
And that was before they had all the technology that was embedded into the roads, transponders.
Yeah, this was how little I knew about trucking at that point. The guy comes up, pulls me over, and he says, what are you doing? I said, I'm going up here to the truck stop, drop off this truck back here because the other one tore.
Oh, so you did have, that's right. Yeah, you did say that. So you did have cargo.
Yeah, I had another truck that we was taking out, and we were going to bring the broken truck back.
Yep.
And he said, well, you got to stop the scale. I said, well, I didn't think I had to stop the scale because, I don't have a trailer on. He said, no, you have to stop the scale. I said, okay. I said, well, I can go up and turn around and come back. He said, no. He said, whose authority are you running under? I said, well, my boss told me to do it.
Yes, I was getting ready to say, my boss called and said, go do this.
Yeah. He said, no, I mean, whose authority? I didn't know what he was talking about, authority. Yeah. What's authority? He said, well, who owns this wrecker? I said, his boss. He said, well, who owns that truck? I said, my boss. He said, well, whose authority are you running under? I said, well, my boss called me up and told me to drive this wrecker that I don't know how to operate, but I know how to drive, And he's coming out to operate the control part of the wrecker.
Because I don't know how to do that.
The cop says, where are you going? I said, up here at this truck stop. He said, get out of here.
See, you wouldn't get that anymore at all.
Yeah. Now, sometimes it's better to act dumb, but in that case, I just was dumb.
Just not informed.
Yeah. I had no idea what he was talking about. Whose authority.
Which brings me to the point, and I sent it out today. Today being June 26th, just so I can reference this. I had to apologize because I've sent out extra trainings this week. But it literally is just to inform.
Yeah.
I try to make those things simple enough, but I made a promise to everyone through orientation, through all of this. We're trying to make improvements. We want you guys to have the real information. That's why we send it to you. Not everyone comes in like you do, where I have a conversation. They stay out there or they avoid my office altogether, whichever the case may be. But I learned just as much, excuse me, talking to you guys out there on the road when you come in and we have a discussion. That's what keeps me up to date on what's actually going on out there. Yeah. Not somebody doing a blog or sending me an article of the state of trucking. You guys know the state of trucking.
Well,
and that's one of the reasons we did the safety committee, because they're out there. And to be honest, I go to you for stuff all the time. I'll be plain and simple about it. There's times where I'm like, Mike, what would you do in this situation? And I've always enjoyed, and I think, having you there to bounce that stuff off of.
Well, I appreciate that. But, like I say, I didn't have a lot of mentors, in this. Just about everything that I know, I've learned on my own. Yeah, I've had some people that, have, said things to me that I remember, like, Steve Plummer said, you can carry more than you can pull. Okay, I remember that.
Okay.
You can load your tractor heavier than you can your trailer, and it'll run better.
Yep.
If you're heavier on your drives than you're on your trailer, you can pull the hill better.
Yeah.
Dragging it
is not as efficient.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I remember things like that, you know. But for the most part, you learn it as you go. And after 50-some years, you know.
You learn a lot.
You learn a lot. And I forgot a lot. And I still don't know a lot.
And that's been one of my challenges moving into a solely safety role is after 15 years of driving as a driver. That's the part of the industry that I knew. Now it's taken some time, and I think that hopefully I bring a good mix of both to the job. I want to do it well. My ideal year, no violations, no crashes. No. Now my reality states that my brain knows that that's not going to be the case.
Yeah.
Because even with we had a couple of vehicle maintenance violations the last few weeks that they're just situations that happened. An airline, comes undone from a brake chamber. You and I both know that if this driver, and particularly this driver, if he had pulled up to a stoplight and he wasn't on the highway when that happened and he depresses the service brake, it's not going to maintain air pressure. They're going to pop because that's an entire airline off the brake chamber that's just flowing air straight out of it.
Yeah.
So that tells me that driving down the road, something kicked up, something got that, the airline, and he's just running down the road, not using his brakes. It's going to maintain pressure and let him keep going until he needs to stop. And when you stop at a scale house because, well, of course, you got pulled in there because your fellow coworkers were blasting through construction zones at 15 over the speed limit, so now everyone gets inspected. We obviously had that situation come up. It was an out-of-service violation. And I didn't blast that out there just from the simple fact that that's not something that would have been caught on a pre or post trip. That's happened in transit because it's impossible. I went out here, we removed a line off a brake chamber on a tractor, and I sat out there, let it run till it was completely full, put my foot on the brake for 10 seconds like I was at a stoplight, and the brakes cut. Did not have enough air pressure to operate. So I think that, where I was going with that, and to your point when you were talking about how the officers are doing things out there, they're just doing a job. The technology is now to the point where they know if you have a flat tire before you pull on the scale. The road sensors are reading it.
Well, I respect them for doing their job.
Yeah.
But here's the thing that gets me. They're doing their job, and they say it's about safety.
Okay.
And I appreciate that. But when they pull you over on the shoulder of an interstate to do a level 1, 2, 3 inspection on the shoulder of the road when there's trucks and cars driving by you at 70, 75 mile an hour, that is no longer about safety. That is about them writing a ticket.
Unless they observe something that was catastrophically unsafe.
You know what?
Go up to the ramp.
They got radios in their cars.
True.
And if they can't communicate with you to go to the nearest exit or the nearest safe place and pull it better be a catastrophic violation where I got something that's fallen off my equipment or something like that.
That's an imminent danger, immediate
don't just
danger.
pull me over because a yellow flag popped up on your laptop that says you need to inspect me. If it says you need to inspect me, you follow me up until it gets to the exit ramp, then you flip on your lights.
Yeah.
And then it's about safety.
But then, so to flip that around, that's the difference between a truly safety conscious officer that's doing the job for the right reason, and it could be just a job for them. They are just like we are. They need to feed their families or themselves or whatever, pay their bills or do whatever they need to do, and that's how they chose to do it.
Well, like I say, everybody's got their own agenda.
Yep.
And if there are some out there that just truly hate truck drivers, I can appreciate that. I hate some, truck drivers.
Sure, yeah. We've all ran across them.
Yeah.
There's some officers, just for the record, that put these bracelets on me that I didn't like a whole lot, that I just still don't like to this day. And so that's perception too.
Yeah. And I can agree with that. If you just hate truck drivers, that's fine.
Yeah.
But still, let's be safe. I had a Kentucky officer, as he's sitting in the middle, and I went by, and he decided that our number needed to be checked. He pulled out behind me and turned on his lights.
In Kentucky?
In Kentucky. This was a year and a half, 2 years ago.
Okay.
And he decided we needed to be checked, and I said, okay, fine. And he pulled up behind me with these lights on. I turned on my four-way flashers to acknowledge to him that I seen him. Which
is what they ask us to do.
And there's a guardrail on the side of the road. I waited another 1.5 miles until that guardrail ended and pulled over. When he came up, I had my passenger's door was unlocked. My motor was shut off so that I could hear him. He could hear me. And the first words out of his mouth was, "I appreciate you pulling over at the end of the guardrail."
See?
And I said,
that's a professional that's in it. You know, you don't question their motives at that point, because the first thing he said to you was a safety-related statement.
Yeah. And I said, "Look," I said, "your life is important, my life is important, and so is that guy out there on the road that's driving by us 70 miles an hour." I said, "I wasn't going to put us in an unsafe situation." You know, yes, I was still on the shoulder of the road, the interstate, but I wasn't like right on the shoulder.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
I was past the guardrail where we had, you know, a couple foot buffer in between the side of my truck and the fog line.
Yeah.
You know, but I've seen on 127 down here, on a 2-lane,
Stop them.
they stop him and the guy can't pull off at the shoulder of the road because he's going to sink.
There's nowhere to go, yeah.
Yeah. Now he's going to have a tow bill involved, you know. Hey, unless that's Johnny Dillinger in that truck, I don't see the reason to be flipping the lights on him, you know. Follow him, you know.
I think they're still looking for the leader of the Teamsters Union.
Yeah, yeah.
Jimmy better not be in that trunk.
Yeah, Jimmy Hoppet may be in that truck.
So, kind of circling back here. So you had your first job. You're headed out to Iowa. You made it out there, like you said. You were hauling. What would you haul?
Buildings.
Building. Yeah. You were
Prefab
hauling
buildings.
Yep. So, kind of, where did you end up? And of course, you didn't do your whole career at that company. So, what was your next step in there? Where did that end okay for you? Did situations change?
Well, I worked there for a couple years, and we hauled, you know, flatbed loads of steel, grain mostly, dog food, as I said. You know, you know. But I was on a salary. I worked 5 days a week, and they paid me $200 a week.
Okay. Now, was that a livable wage at that time?
It was okay.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I mean, it was okay. The bad part was I was drinking up most of that. So, you know, as far as supporting my family and being a good husband and father, you know, not so much. Okay. But I was still suffering from the mental anguish of the factory work.
Okay.
And so, you know, I hadn't really healed. You know,
now, are you home every day? Not going to Iowa and back, but
most every day.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, a lot of days I was home every day. You know, which was a job that a lot of people would, you know, be seeking now.
Yep.
But yeah, I drove there for a couple years, and then another outfit down at Rockford, Ohio, that only hauled grain. They stole me from this guy.
Yeah.
You know. And of course, my brother-in-law at the time worked there. So,
okay.
You know.
So you knew someone. You had an inside avenue.
Right, and that's all it was about back then was, you know, well, hey.
Networking.
Yeah.
It's literally what we call networking, what we go to conferences, trade business cards, and do all this stuff now.
Yeah.
Trucking is all about that. And it comes right down from the driver to a tire changer to even a truck washer.
Right.
There's I had to hire truck washers over at Hillendale Farms. There's a market out there, and it's definitely tough to find them at times.
Right. Well, experience, you know, they thought I had experience because I'd been doing this for a couple of years. But I had no idea what I was doing. You know, I just knew how to drive the truck, and I could back into a farmer's driveway with a spread axle with no power steering without tearing up the farmer's wife's yard, you know.
Which was always important.
Oh, you tear up her flower bed while you're backing in to load a load of grain, and you
better help you make it out of there. I was gonna say, you better help you make it out of there.
Yeah, you ain't never coming
so
back.
I'm the crotchety old man that don't drive in my yard.
Yeah.
Please don't drive in my yard.
Yeah, well, so I worked for CNR Grain for a couple years, and harvest came, and we were very busy. I think I drove 14 days straight with the only sleep I got was when I was waiting in the grain line, and you would wait on the truck ahead of you to pull up, and you would wake up.
Okay.
I had a magnet with a piece of fish string and a cowbell, and I would put the magnet on the truck in front of me, And when he would pull forward, the cowbell would hit the floor, wake me up, and I would pull forward, reattach the magnet, go back to sleep. Now, it may be 5 minutes, it may be 15 minutes, you know?
Yep, just depends on the process.
Yeah, I drove like that. And when harvest was over, they laid me off because they had nothing else. That's all they were. CNR grain, they hauled grain.
Okay, so I want to stop there real quick because this definitely relates to what we were talking about earlier and last week's podcast. Right there is the exact situation that we are trying to inform the drivers of where, I mean, and I don't know if they got you lured away with money, but you said that, hey, I was on a salary, I'm only making this.
It was a money deal.
So you were able, so life experience here, you were speaking from life experience with your wisdom from the last one. The grass looked greener. It was going to be more money. And then you came to that point where, oh crap,
yeah,
that money ran out. Now what do I do? Because that's the gap that Rick was talking about 2 weeks ago where I'm making $200 a week. It's a steady $200 a week. It's coming in every week. No issues like that.
Well, when I went to CNR grain, they were paying me by the bushel.
Okay.
Well, hey, they're CNR grain. That's what they do, you know? And I didn't have to mess with the steel. I didn't have to, do anything except for overload my truck.
Yeah, because that's how you made money. I mean, I get it.
Yeah. So I overloaded my truck. I pulled into Cargill over in Lima one time, and I weighed in on 109,000 on 5 axles. And they couldn't dump me.
Couldn't get it up?
The lift wouldn't lift me.
I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah.
So I had my first gig as an owner-operator, I was hauling end dump. And it was furnace dust out of SDI up there in Butler. And it was pretty good. I got to do 3 runs one week, and then every other week on Wednesdays, they did maintenance. And they shut down the plant on Wednesday for most of the day. No dust produced.
Yeah.
So I would do one that week, go to the house, park it, and I would do other stuff if it came up. But water got underneath the scales in the old dust system.
Yeah.
And, of course, winter came, and it froze. And, of course, you can't push a scale down on top of frozen water. It doesn't go any further down. Therefore, when you load your truck to 80,000 pounds and the scale out front is frozen and you pull out of there, I ended up in Palmerton, Pennsylvania at 104,000 pounds, and they would not let me raise the bed up in the air, even though it was on a concrete level floor inside of a building where you couldn't ask for better conditions. If you've ever ran end dump, you know, if you're on uneven ground, look out, because that's trouble. But yeah, they wouldn't even let me lift it up there. So and that was your daily haul.
Yeah. Well, so they laid me off.
Okay.
And so I went to the unemployment office and I filed for unemployment.
Okay.
And I was thinking, okay, I've been running hard. I could use this little vacation. And I was going to be drawing the maximum for unemployment because I had been making good money.
Yeah.
And I was so ready for a vacation. And the very first week I went to the unemployment office, they sent me to Conrad's truck stop. They said, he needs a truck driver. I did my best to blow that interview. I mean, I did everything I could think of to keep from getting hired.
And they still hired you.
He hired me. Big Ed Conrad, my friend to this day.
But that tells you the state of probably the desperation he actually needed to put someone in that truck if he just didn't care.
He needed somebody to drive the truck because he ran the truck stop.
Okay.
And there was a trucking company that had ran up a big fuel bill.
Oh.
So he laid claim on a couple of their trucks. And of course, they didn't give him good trucks.
No.
These trucks would, I mean, it was bad.
Beat you to death.
They were, excuse me, they were shit boxes.
Yeah, hey, it is what it is.
He had a Peterbilt cab over. I drove it to Cleveland and back. And every run, it would break down somehow. It had air ride in the back, but one of the pads was missing underneath one of the airbags. So the rear end was cocked, and it would throw the drive shaft out. I get past Lodi truck stop one time, and I had to walk 7 miles back to truck stop, buy a toolkit, walk back, take the drive shaft out, the back drive shaft, put the power divider in, and I got 45,000 pounds of Clorox in there. Drove it back with the power divider in, no rear drive shaft. It had ripped one of the brake chambers off. I had to take a pair of vice grips and bend the airline over, crimped the airline off. I get back to the truck stop, and he said, well, the load goes to Defiance. You think you can make it up there?
Well,
I was like,
well, I've made it this far.
I just barely made it in here, Can't you fix the truck, But that's the way it was. And I drove for him for a couple years, and then I said, I'm buying my own truck.
Okay, so now we're moving on to your owner-operator career.
Yeah.
All right.
1977,
What'd you buy?
I bought a 84 Chevy Titan 90, like an Astro 95, cab over, 350 big cam Cummins, 13-speed, no power steering, and twin screw.
Now, beginning of career, day one driving to the day you bought your own truck. What kind of time frame are we looking at here? Before
3 years.
3 years, really?
Maybe 3.5 years.
That's pretty quick.
Yeah.
So good deal.
Yeah.
So you buy your own truck, and I'm assuming didn't continue hauling that stuff. Did you venture out and find your own stuff, or did you already have contacts that said, "Hey, I'm pretty confident I can get freight, and I know I can latch on to"?
I went to work for George Schroyer down at Salina because he had a PUCO number, and if I ran it under his PUCO number, I didn't have to pay sales tax on the truck when I bought it.
Okay.
So I leased it on with him for a month, long enough to get my sales tax.
The tax benefits?
Yes. And, of course, back then, I bought a 3-year-old truck for $18,000.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So you bought a 74, not an 84.
Yeah, I bought a 74
okay. Well, you said
77.
Okay, gotcha.
And it had a rebuilt motor in it and new clutch. It had new drive tires. It was ready to go.
And this is back in the day where you could trust guys' word a little bit more when you're getting into a piece of equipment versus nowadays where it's like, oh, I'm trying to get rid of this.
Right. So I got that truck. I put it on with Schroyer. I drove for a month, and then I signed it on with Bucks Incorporated out of Columbus, Ohio.
Okay.
Worthington, I think it was. It was a suburb of Columbus.
Okay.
And hauled van freight. Never left the state of Ohio. It was called Bucks because they just operated in the Buckeye.
Intrastate.
Yeah. And my big haul that was probably the most lucrative was I would haul out of Van Wert, out of Continental Can, go to Cincinnati, and pick up down there after I delivered and come back to Findlay, Ohio, and come home. And I'd be home by 3:30 in the afternoon.
Beer cans? Beer cans?
No, Continental Can, fiber drums.
Fiber drums, okay.
Yeah.
Is that what, where is that Grief now?
It's Greif.
Okay, Greif, okay.
Yeah. It used to be called Continental Can, then it was Sunoco, fiber drum, and now it's Greif, I think. And
yeah, I spent 4 hours in a dock door and got to look at your old house for a while. I think we were on the phone that day. I was sitting there, and you told me about your gig down there, which I'm sure we'll get to later.
Oh, yeah. That was several years later.
Sign me up, is all I'm going to say.
Yeah. That was several years later. That was a good dig,
Yep. But anyway, go ahead. You were doing that for Continental Can.
Yeah, I did that for Continental Can. Well, I mean, I would run to Cleveland and pick up Clorox or pick up sugar or something like that and bring it back to Lima or,
Is that what you're doing a backhaul?
Yeah, but I was always, right here in the state and home most every night.
Because as an owner-operator, you understood it was more efficient to haul freight both directions for your wallet than it was to drive out there 150 miles, even 200, whatever it was. Like you said, you were within the state of Ohio the entire time. And even back then, it's like, okay, I want to make money on the way back. And it doesn't need to be the most lucrative freight in the earth.
No.
It just needs to cover the bills. I mean, for 8 years, I ran with a company that the business model was, we are going to take meat and cheese out of Wisconsin. We're going to make you go to New York City. And not make me. I signed up for it. I knew I was getting into. You're going to go deliver all over. And then the freight you bring back, and I knew the template once they started letting me in on the business side of things. It was just a break even. They were just trying to break even coming back because all the money was made for the customer on the way out there.
Right.
So that's kind of, one of the things we try to impress here as well is we try to help everyone make good business decisions, even if you're not an owner-operator and you're looking into it. That's why we haul freight both directions. it's going to pay better. You're a flatbed guy, you're running freight out of New Mill. That pays better on the way wherever you're going than anything you're going to bring back typically. I mean, that's 99% of the time. But even back then, it was when fuel was cheaper, it was cheaper to live, essentially. Trucks were cheaper and more in line with what everybody was making. You were still hauling freight back that way. It was just money in your pocket. It made sense.
Right. Well, I think, the story I've told quite often is I sold my truck because fuel got to be 41 cents a gallon, and I didn't think anybody could make a living at that anymore. But the truth of the matter is, I was making good money running inside the state of Ohio. But the problem was I was getting home at 3:30 in the afternoon, and instead of going home and being a good family man, I was going to the bowling alley, and I would stay until they closed, and then I would get back in the truck, which was parked at the bowling alley.
Okay.
And I would go out to Continental Camp, pick up my load, and I'd be sitting in Cincinnati in the morning,
Yeah.
And I was taking off after I had very many liquid refreshments.
Adult
beverages.
Yeah.
And, you can only ignore your family so long,
Before stuff starts to go bad.
Yeah.
Essentially, yeah.
And so ended up that that was my first marriage that I screwed up.
Okay.
And lost the truck, lost my house, lost my wife, my kid, all my cars. I had a garage that was full of car parts and cars, and lost it all. And at that point, I guess I didn't care because I was so consumed with alcohol.
I can relate to that.
So
that starts driving your decision making instead of. I'm not saying what should.
Well, I wasn't really making decisions at that point. I was just going, what's going to happen today is going to happen today.
So take it as it comes.
Just whatever happens, So
That typically, well, at least for me when I was on that cycle, each decision was, how do I get out of the last one? Oh shit, how do I get out of the last one? It was more something like that versus nice planned out, hell, this is a success for the day or whatever the case may be. It does make it a lot more difficult.
Well, so then I started working for Ed Conrad again.
Okay.
And
as a company driver, I'm assuming.
Yes. And I drove for him for a long time. I think like 16 years.
Oh, wow.
Off and on.
Okay.
He either fired me or I quit probably 25 times,
Mike Hauser, if you're out there, that just reminds me of you every time you come in the office, just for the record.
But, a week or 2 days or whatever would go by and, we made up. He's still a good friend of mine, As a matter of fact, Ed, if you're listening, I got to get down and see you,
Florida?
Yeah.
All right.
Cape Coral.
Yep, I know where that's going.
Yeah. So, drove for him for quite a while. Was hauling motor blocks, primarily out of Indianapolis, going to Detroit. And we would pick up in Detroit scrap paper, going to north of Terre Haute, Indiana, and then back to Indy.
Okay. So a pretty good little round there.
Yeah, or we would pick up transmission parts up in Michigan, around Detroit, Ypsilanti area, going back to Kokomo, Indiana, to transmission plant. Yep.
Okay.
But we was making loops. And I was running, 600-700 miles a day.
So which is still possible even on ELDs today. I've seen guys, I think we had a 704-mile day out of a guy, but he had a 1,000-mile run, and it was get on the interstate and go. And this particular gentleman knows how to keep that left door shut. So, So he's pretty efficient at what he does. But it's still, even that mileage is possible today with ELDs.
Yeah. Well, I was doing that consistently.
Uh-huh.
Well, then his son went and branched out on his own, and so I started working for him. But it was a combination of the two companies together, and we started running to New York City and back. And I ran that for years. And most weeks, not every week, but most weeks I would run 3 rounds a week.
Out and back, okay.
I would leave here on Sunday, deliver in either New Jersey or New York City on Monday, pick up a load of garbage, municipal waste, come back to Wabash, Indiana, deliver it Tuesday, back out there Wednesday, back here Thursday, back out there Friday, back here Saturday, leave again Sunday.
So no days off.
No days off.
Yeah. So you're putting the time in, you're working hard for your money.
Working hard and spending it. The most money I ever made in my life was the brokest I ever been. Because when you got money on your hip and you're young and you're dumb and you've had no instruction in your life, my dad died when I was 12.
Now I can't say I raised my hand, but I had definitely had good instruction that I just knew better.
Yeah. Well, I never knew better, and although I had a lot of people telling me you shouldn't do this, it wasn't really sinking in.
Well, no, I'm stating that I had good instruction, but I was a dumb kid and I knew better and didn't listen to it.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Well, I guess I just didn't care. I don't know.
Okay.
I had already screwed up my life, So how much worse is it going to get? I mean.
Okay, that's fair.
I just didn't care.
And that's your state of mind at that point in time. I mean, nobody can change that. But I'm glad to say that this many years later, when I met you, that's all changed now.
Oh, yeah.
Clearly. So
I've done a lot of growth since I met my wife.
Okay.
That I'm married to now, and thank God for her, I wouldn't be here. Because of her, I wanted to change.
So it just took the right person.
Well,
maybe the right person at the right time. Maybe that's a more fair statement.
Or maybe I just got tired of living like that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay.
But, I have changed significantly from what I was.
Yeah.
But I like to say that even with all the drinking and driving and everything, I've never had an accident, but I've caused a bunch of them. They always seem to happen behind me.
It's funny how that works.
Yeah. So, without this turning into some like deep, psychological intervention or something on my part.
Yeah,
I did a lot of things wrong, but I still trucked. I still got out there. I still made my delivery, and it didn't matter if I was incapacitated or not. I made it there. I remember one time in particular, I was on my way to New Jersey. I had a load of pharmaceuticals, and I blew a drive tire. I had to pull over and get it fixed, and it made me running late. I called the place from a payphone at the, while they're working they're working on my truck, and I called the guy and I said, "Look, it's a small load. Got to be there by 2:00." I said, "Look, I'm going to do my best, but I don't know where I can make it by 2:00." He said, "Well," he said, "do what you can." So I pulled in. It's like 5:10 after 2. I walk up and the guy comes to the door and he said, "No," he said, "you're just too late." And I said, "Well, just take a look at my bills." I said, "It's a real small load." I said, "Maybe you'll see that,
you can squeeze it in.
You can squeeze it in."
Yeah.
So he looks at the first page and he lifts it up and there's a $20 bill underneath it.
How did that get there?
Yeah. And he looks at it and he goes, "Yeah, I see what you mean." He said, "I think we..." Now, if that was today, it better be $100.
I was going to say,
what I mean? But back in the day, $20, and it got me in the dock and got me unloaded. So you did what you had to do, to get unloaded.
Yeah. Oh, I learned a very quick lesson out there on the East Coast. You go into a port and you're dealing with longshoremen. The only thing they give a crap about is money.
Money.
So there's a reason they make $175,000 a year. Now, they spend every bit of that to live out there just because of cost of living.
Right.
People think that it's this gravy job, and it may be, and they think that they're rich, but when your rent is $2,800 a month for a tin can that you're living in and shoved in an apartment building, for me, that's no life, but that's exactly what I did. I would sit there to grease their palms, and it was $50 bills. It was $100 bills. It wasn't 20s, because to them, that wasn't going to move the needle.
No.
That was their lunch break. that was the burger they had that day cost $20.
But you did what you had to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And, it was a whole different world back then. Nowadays, you can't, there's cameras everywhere. 6 months ago, I was over here in Indiana unloading. And I got done unloading, and I told the guy, I said, "Hey," I said, "will you do me a favor to sweep my trailer out for me?" I said, "I'll give you $2."
Yeah.
I said, here, and I kind of had to cuff it to him, I gave him $30 for sweeping out my trailer. But you got to kind of hide it because the camera's up there. You don't want to get this guy in trouble.
No, yeah, I get it. And a lot of times they will, especially if they work for a company. Yeah, you got to be careful with that.
Yeah. So he swept it out and he come out and he said, "Man," he said, "it's hot in there." I said, "That's why I didn't want to do it."
That's exactly why.
You would have had to call a squad.
I thought I was going to drop dead in a trailer. I had just bought my truck. We were a little slow with SDI had shut down for their 2-week maintenance in the summertime. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, I'm just going to check around. I want something close here. So I went up to that Family Dollar DC and I leased, I don't even remember which, I think it was Forward Air. It was Forward Air that I ended up leasing to is who it was. They had the original contract up there in Ashley. And I was 400 pounds at the time. And the first load they gave me was out to Gary, Indiana, to 4 stops. And amidst the gunfire at 3 o'clock in the morning that I'm listening to in this area where I'm in, they don't put Family Dollars in the best locations, which we've discussed before. But I got in that trailer. It's August.
Yeah.
I about died. And in fact, I have never, ever touched a piece of anyone's freight and I stole or commandeered or whatever you want to call it. But I looked right at that poor guy that was standing outside of the trailer. And I said, listen, I will buy this case of water, but it's not making it off this truck. And I just started ripping into the water and drinking it before I was sending it in the back of the store.
Yeah.
So, well, but a lot of things have changed back then. And just kind of keep it going here a little bit. I appreciated being able to run how I wanted to when I did ag exempt for anhydrous and things like that. However, I wouldn't take a chance with anyone's life, so I would pull over. I knew my limitation, and I would stop, and it paid well enough that I didn't need to be stupid.
Yeah,
essentially is what it was. And I'm hoping that as long as we're on the subject of getting the job done. I don't personally advocate getting the job done if you're intoxicated. There's a camera. There we can go. I can get that out to the fleet. But I see what you're saying. You took pride in what it was. It was still a sense of pride to you over all those years you even had clouded judgment.
Right.
That integrity and that pride came in. And I'm sure you came to a point where like, oh, I can't be doing this in this truck. And where was that time where, I guess, in that driving career where you said, okay, this is enough? I know you said you met your wife and you wanted to change, but at some point in time there had to be like, this is madness. I'm going to kill somebody. I mean, I know you had to have that thought because you're a very open-minded gentleman that sees stuff like that. You kind of see a little bit deeper than what most guys I talk to. And even your relations, whether you go into a restaurant and there's a waitress there that you can tell is having a bad day. You told me a story about, you did this little gesture, it cheered her up. So not a lot of guys will share those kinds of things. Where did it come along where you're like, man, I need to worry about humanity here too and how I'm portraying myself to people?
Well, I don't know exactly when.
Okay.
But I know that time came where I made up my mind that I couldn't keep doing that kind of life.
Yeah.
And I think it was at the end of my second marriage.
Okay.
How
many of those did you have? Are you on 3 or 4?
I'm on my third one.
Okay.
And this is it. This is it. This is
that seems to be a common number for truck drivers or anyone that's in the industry. It's that third one. It's going to be, that's the one.
Well, I got married too young the first time, and it was definitely not her fault. Okay.
Yeah.
She was a good woman.
Okay.
That was all on me. My second one, neither one of us were very good.
Split responsibility.
Right.
Which it does take two. I mean, it's but like you said, in the first one, you were drinking, and there's other factors that were in there where the other party may not have actually had something into it. You were just in a different state, in a different place than they were.
Yeah.
In your life.
Yeah. This one, I said, this is it. And if it screws up, it's not going to be my fault.
Okay.
So I've done everything I can to make every day still be the first day. And she'll ask me or I'll ask her occasionally, is it still the first? Because on that first day when you meet that woman or you meet that man that you really want to catch her eye,
sure,
you'll do anything in the world for them to even know your name.
That's probably fair, yeah.
Yeah, you'll do a headstand, just so they go, who is that?
We have a camera. I can clear some room here. I want to see that happen.
Well, I used to be quite good at it. But you'd do anything just for them to notice you.
Sure.
Or know who you are.
Yep, that's fair.
So, a lot of times when you're dating or whatever in a relationship, the first whatever length of time is an act. You're putting on an act for them to, to like you.
Yeah, that absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I figure if they like me for who I actually am, then that's a good thing. I don't have to act.
Yeah, it might go a little bit better for you. Well, what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting something different to happen.
Yeah. Well, I don't understand why, but for some reason my wife seems to like me.
She does, though. I've been on conversations with you guys on the phone, and she takes it well.
Yeah.
Anyone that's ever spent any amount of time talking with Mike knows that he's got a good sense of humor, but sometimes he's a step ahead of you in that sense of humor, and it takes you a second to catch up.
Yeah. She a lot of times says, whenever there's a problem, and I'll make a joke, she'll say, "Can't you ever be serious?" I said, "No."
No.
It doesn't enter into me to be serious. If there's a problem, I'll solve it, or it's not solvable.
Yeah.
But
I think that's a male trait, though. I think all of us try to solve stuff all the time. And it's incredibly frustrating for me, and it just makes me mad when I can't.
Yeah. I've told you this story before about my dad. My dad, he died when I was 12, just about to turn 13. And he had a sign that hung out on a tree in front of the house that said, "Why worry?" And he lived that.
Okay.
He didn't worry about nothing, okay? Well, that was the one thing that I got from my old man was why worry. I actually opened up a auto repair shop down here by Convoy and called it Why Worry Car Care.
Okay, I say you've told me about this.
Yeah, and it does no good to worry. It even says it in Matthew in the Bible, don't worry. Don't worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow will worry about itself. So it does no good to worry. So if something happens, you deal with it
as it comes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man, I worry all the time.
It doesn't do any good.
I don't sleep at night waiting for the next call and crap, somebody hit me or I've hit someone.
Yep.
I truly do. Intellectually, I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Mentally, to flip that switch to where I don't know if I'm mentally capable of doing that.
Well, it was what I was raised with.
Okay. Which is different. That's ingrained into you from a very young age.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the reason why I lived the wild outlaw life, because I didn't worry. I didn't worry.
Just took it as it came.
Yeah. Whatever happens, gay sarah, sarah,
I bet that makes you pretty resourceful, though, which I already know you are. I mean, a few loads you brought up, you've had to be pretty resourceful to get them up here. Not that it was illegal. It was just you're in a spot where you can't get help or this, that, or the other, and you're usually able to figure it out.
Well, you got to kind of count on yourself because you can't count on anybody else.
I absolutely agree with that, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're going to just sit around waiting on somebody to help you, you're going to be sitting around a long time.
There's only two people I can count on for anything, no matter what in my life, and they reside in Indiana right now, and they're in the childhood home I grew up in because that's the only two people I know. No matter what I do, no matter what it is, they'll be there. But I do absolutely agree with that. I try to rely on myself. I don't like to take things from other people. I just feel like I owe them, and not just that. It depends on who the person is, I guess. But I just always feel indebted.
Yeah.
And it's just I don't like that on top of me all the time. And so I try not to reach out for help or anything like that. And so it's a pretty rare occasion when we were talking earlier that I'll reach out and say, "Mike, what would you do?" Like, I'm stuck.
Yeah. Well, it's been a long career. And I'm hoping that it's not coming to a close anytime soon. But I have always pushed and pushed and pushed to get the job done.
You're a hard worker. Not making any pun. You have a few health issues you deal with. Not going to discuss them. But I see you come in here, and there's struggles at times, and sometimes you don't feel well, and you still get in the truck. But I've also noticed maybe old Mike that would do anything to get the load done. This Mike here knows when he's sick.
Yeah.
And instead of making the trek all the way to Paulding, Ohio, you may lay up in Knoxville, you may lay up in Cincinnati, but that's just knowing your limitations and understanding that that driver next to you, he wants to make a home to his family or hers, or if it's a child.
Well,
you know, it could be someone's minor child. I love that you have the wherewithal and completely respect the fact that you will make that call and stop.
Well, when you start, I know what my point is. When I start driving off of the hood of my truck, and I'm looking down here, instead of looking out there, it's time for me to get the hell off the road.
Yep.
Because when you're driving, you need to be focused out there. A mile ahead. If you can see 2 miles, you need to see 2 miles ahead. You need to be watching up there, because that's where the shit's going to happen.
Exactly.
Yeah. If you're looking here, it's already happened.
And prime example is fog.
Yeah.
You're sitting there wailing 60 miles an hour on an interstate through fog just because you expect it to be clear in front of you because it's an interstate, and then you come up on a pileup.
Yeah.
Where do you go?
Yeah.
Never outdrive your sight. That's
Yeah.
why you're scanning up ahead, and by doing that, you have an out.
Yeah.
Like I consistently, now I probably wouldn't look that far ahead, but I am trying to look 10 to 15 seconds ahead at all times when I was behind the wheel of a big truck, because that also, my peripheral vision, I knew where I was going to go if something happened.
I love my fender mirrors.
Yes, I do too.
I love my fender mirrors because I can continue to look straight ahead, and just by glancing them from side to side, I can see what's happening behind me.
Yep.
You know, or beside me, you know.
And I took, maybe it was, I don't know if pride's the right word, but took ownership of that was my responsibility. My responsibility to the people around me was, if something happens, doing no harm to them.
Yeah.
If that ultimately meant that it was harm to me, then I was going to live, or maybe not, with that, depending on the situation. But my focus became, and mind you, I had young children when I started in trucking, and I should have thought of this sooner, considering I had young children.
Right.
They were probably in their early teens, maybe late 10, 11, 12s for my youngest one, before that kind of set in. And it took a life experience of witnessing a fatality accident happen in front of me. It was actually a suicide. I've discussed it on here. I had a buddy that was driving in front of me, and somebody just decided that was the end.
At the time.
And that really, really changed my perspective that day on things, because you start to think of things in a new light when you witness it firsthand.
Yeah.
I feel like.
I had an instance leaving Cargill in Lima, Ohio. And you pull out on the road, and there's a railroad tracks right there on Cable Road.
Okay.
And I pulled out, and the crossing arms was down. And I looked and didn't see anybody. And I was in a hurry because I was hauling by the bushel.
Okay.
Need to get that next load in. I'm not going to wait on some slow-ass freight train.
Yep.
So I went across in between the crossing rails and went across and stopped. And I no sooner got stopped and I heard the train horn, and boom. A guy in a car behind me.
Followed you.
He followed me. But because where I was stopped, there was a stoplight right there at 309, and there wasn't enough room for him to get across the tracks.
I know where you're at now. As soon as you said 309, I know exactly where, I know where you're at. Okay.
Yeah. There was not enough room for him to get across the tracks, and he stopped. Amtrak train.
Ooh, that's not a freight train.
No, at like 70 miles an hour, hit him. And I still to this day feel responsible for that guy getting killed. It knocked him clean out the back window of his car, and he's laying on the trunk lid like this, still acting like he had a hold of the steering wheel. It killed him instantly.
Wow.
He sold garages or small metal buildings, and he had pictures of all these garages, and they were floating through the air. When the train hit the car, it just like it exploded. And I think to this day, if I wouldn't have went across that railroad tracks,
Would he have followed me?
he wouldn't have been able to.
True. I mean, he could have went around you on the left, I'm assuming, but he
But-
wouldn't have been able to see like he could after you being through there to where he could take that
Yeah.
chance. Now, as adults, we both know that everyone makes their own decisions. He had his decision to stop at that and not drive through it, just the same as if I'm behind you and witness you do that, I may not be willing to take that risk, and I would stop at that cross arm.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in the end, I see I see that mindset, absolutely. And you know, and ultimately it is his responsibility to stop. Well, just because we see one person do something, just to kind of relate that to nowadays, doesn't mean it's okay for the rest of us.
Well, you know, I like to try and mask things with a lot of humor, but when I say I've never had an accident, but I've caused a bunch of them, there's some truth to that.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Because people have followed my actions, or because of my actions, it's gotten them in trouble. And the only thing I can say is I thank the good Lord for riding with me. You know, it's not that I'm such a great driver, that I've got all these millions of miles and all these years. You know, I've got somebody co-riding with me, because there's no way that I could have done this on my own.
Well, especially with, I mean, all the situations you've talked about over the course of this and in our previous podcasts that you've been in.
Oh, I could tell you stories that, you know, we could be here for months. You know, my wife at the time and I decided we were going to move to Texas.
Oh, I would love to go to Texas.
There were a friend of mine, Jimmy Butler, that runs Showgirl in Fort Wayne.
Oh boy, yes, we've had our talks about this.
Well,
I know Jimmy Butler, by the way.
Do you?
We've talked about this. Yeah. I worked there the summer of 2000. It'd been 2000.
Yeah, I was gone.
Yeah, see, I had a buddy that, and he was a DJ for the Bear.
Yeah.
He started out at Showgirls 2, which became Centerfolds.
Yeah.
Eventually, when they sold that off over by the old Cypher's Costco, where that's at, over in Fort Wayne. And so he stayed when it was Centerfolds, and they would stay open until 5 a.m. Now, they wouldn't serve after 3, because Indiana cuts off at 3, but you could stay, drink, pop, and then whatever you wanted to do after that. But he ended up at Showgirl 3 after he got on the Bear, and it was kind of a good draw for him. And so I ended up being a bartender there. I had a bartender's license. I was doing it in Kendallville, Indiana, where I was working at in a factory to cover my bar tab for the week. I'd make about $350 a week in tips and in my hourly wage doing that for him, and I never took a dime of it home. I never seen a penny of that money, because I would spend it the rest of the week in the bar every day afterwards.
So you knew Todd Killian and Al Butler and Mike
Al
Bauer.
Butler, that name sounds familiar. I honestly would go in there so my biggest function that I would do is if they would have a feature dancer.
Oh, okay.
They needed to staff up. So I would go in there, because I worked 7 days a week, 12 hours a day if I could. It was a union shop. I had seniority. I made good money for being 21 years old. Mm-hmm. I was over $20 an hour, and I would just pack that away. But with that came, when you got idle time to go out and have fun,
you did it.
Oh boy, did we do it. And we didn't have any worries about what the cost to go do it. We just did it.
Yeah.
And so we got a little bit of a reputation down there at Showgirl 3 for having money. Mm-hmm. Of course, that's what they're there to do, is to make money. So it was a lot of fun. It was a unique experience. And then it got to the point where it was like, this is a lot of drama. I am not I don't like drama. I don't like dealing with drama. And so I had moved on from that. But anyway, go ahead.
Well, Jimmy, he had some kind of a chip with his dad, who was the money behind any job that Jimmy's ever had.
Okay.
And Jimmy and his wife moved to Texas.
Okay.
Well, I don't know whether it was a case of him being lonely or not knowing anybody around there or what, but he just kept hounding me that we need to move to Texas. There's all kinds of jobs down here and whatever, you know. So
yeah,
me and my wife and another friend and his wife, we took off and at a garage sale, sold everything we had, you know.
Put the necessities in a truck.
We loaded up our little van and took off for Texas.
Okay.
So when we got to Texas, we had a deal where we put I think it was $20 in an envelope. Whoever got the first job got the $20.
got the kitty.
So I ended up getting the first job, and I took them all out to Taco Bell, and that was the end of the $20. You know.
Sure. Anymore, you can't feed 2 at Taco Bell, and I'll tell you what, you especially cannot feed anybody from Paulding Taco Bell. There was one time we had an orientation for a guy. came in here, and it just kind of went wacky. There's a lot of things that happened that day, and I felt bad because we didn't get to the normal lunch that we did. And I said, hey, I tell you what, I'll buy you a 12-pack of tacos. After this is all done, let's get through the next hour. I'll drive you up there and send you on your way with it. Go get you a couple Mountain Dews or whatever you want. Mike, I'm not kidding you. I pulled into this Taco Bell here in town, and I ordered a 12-pack of hard shell tacos with only meat and tomatoes. That's what he wanted on it. Now, standard taco doesn't come with tomatoes.
Right.
It was $41 for 12 tacos out the door, and the last time I ever drove in their parking lot.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Well, you know, Wendy's charges you for honey mustard now.
Really?
Yeah.
See, I don't eat much fast food anymore.
It's 50 cents for a honey mustard. That's crazy.
So I like Kinder's.
Yeah.
Kinder's has some pretty good sauces and stuff, and there's a honey mustard I got for Emily because that's her favorite. And I'll just take the bottle with me. I need to get a little refrigerator in the car to take with her because everything has to have a sauce. The fries have to have a sauce. Everything. It's like, man, it'd be a lot cheaper. So when I go to McDonald's to get fries for her, I have to be the idiot that asks for tartar sauce in a cup or Big Mac sauce. I guess it's Big Mac sauce more than that.
Yeah.
So you bought everybody Taco Bell, and now you're going to work.
Yep. I drove for Transcold Express.
Why does that sound familiar?
Cab over Kenworth. No air conditioning, no heat, no fuel gauge, no speedometer. I mean, it was just old wreck, but that son of a gun would run.
Well, you're in Texas.
Yeah.
They build trucks a little different down there.
Well, I had the West Texas run.
And that's even better because that's where they build them up good.
Yeah, we was in between Fort Worth and Dallas.
Okay.
Euless.
When was this? Because now there is no in between. Now it's all one city.
Well, I think this was like 81 maybe.
Okay.
And so you would go to the dock on Monday morning, and you would spend all day on Monday loading your truck because you'd have 26, 27, 28 stops going to these little delicatessens and you know, a little store inside the mall or something like that, you know. And you might have, you know, 600-pound wheel of cheese, a case of wine, you know, some salami, some bologna, you know, and you had to load all this stuff
on your trailer to go.
On the reefer trailer.
Sounds a lot like when I was out on the East Coast, I would almost always go to Gloucester City, New Jersey, bump 20 to 30 docks, and it was produce loads coming back here to the Midwest. But it's all mixed because I would drop in Indy or Cleveland or Columbus or Chicago. Did a lot back to Chicago produce market there on 55.
Yeah.
But very similar. Yeah,
well,
I understand
you had to sort each thing out, and you had to put it in your trailer according to how it was going to come off. You know, and you'd take off and you'd go up north, you know, and then you'd start heading back out to El Paso, and then you come back through Midland and Odessa and Lufkin, you know, you just had all these different stops. So all day Monday, you load your truck. You leave Monday night, you start going out and delivering freight.
Okay.
I get back in my very first week, Thursday night. I pulled back into the yard. Lewis Sparks was the guy that I worked for.
Okay.
He was like 84 at the time. Lewis Sparks seen me pulling in the gate and immediately just had a fit. What are you doing back here? I said, well, I'm done. There's no way you're done. I said, well, I delivered all my stops. And he said, you didn't make all them deliveries? I said, well, here's, and I had the delivery receipts for each stop.
25 of these bills you're getting out of there.
They're all signed.
Yep.
He wouldn't believe me. He spent all day Friday
trying to
calling them people.
Trying to prove you wrong.
Yeah. So he says, well, we're going to go to, I'm going to put you on the South Texas run next week. I said, all right. So Monday morning, I'm in there loading all my South. I had 28 stops. I had Tyler, I had Beaumont, had Galveston.
Okay.
Had to drive across onto the ferry to get back into Houston, come back in from the other way.
Okay, so you were out there.
Oh,
gotcha.
Yeah. I'd never drove a truck on a ferry in my life. I hate bridges. I hate boats. I don't like water, you know.
We just had some guys that had to go up. I'd have to pull the map up, but off the tip of Wisconsin, off the peninsula,
yeah,
there's a small island out there, not that far, and 3 of our trucks had to get on a ferry. They were delivering steel joists trusses, from New Millennium to build a new school for a total count of 8 students.
Oh, yeah.
How do you even justify that money?
I
just put them on a ferry and put them on the mainland.
Government figure it out. Yeah. They'll raise your property taxes.
This is a lifetime levy like they try to do here in Paulding.
Yeah. But and then back into Houston, and I think I had 26 stops in Houston.
Okay.
And, but I didn't know until Monday night when I got loaded, Lewis Sparks is going to ride with me.
Because he wanted to see how you were doing it.
Yeah.
That's something. I should start doing that.
So he rode with me, and about every half hour, it's like, pull over here, just deal up here. I go, what deal? You know, everything's a deal, you know, in Texas, you know. Pull in this deal. I said, what deal? That deal up there with that sign. I said, you know.
It's no wonder you didn't expect me to get this unloaded.
So he's got to go in and use the bathroom, whatever, you know. So we get down to Houston, and it's Wednesday now.
Okay.
Because we spent all day Tuesday
going to the deal.
Yeah, doing
the
all
deal.
the Tyler and all that deal, Galveston, and we're in Houston, and I'm up at 5:30 in the morning, and Lewis Sparks is in there still taking his time, getting ready, you know, taking a shower, and you know all this shit. I'd been at the bar the night before, you know.
Yeah.
We delivered all day. We get back. There's a country western bar there at the motel where we were staying.
Okay.
I went in the bar. I'm drinking until late, 5:30 in the morning. I'm ready to go. I'm sitting there waiting on Lewis until 7:30 in the morning.
2 hours.
So we get going, and he's let me drive. Well, he's 84 and he drove like it, you know.
Don't tell that to Charles in our fleet, because he does definitely not drive like he's 84.
Well, this guy did, and he was pure Texan too. You know, nobody knows anything. You're a Yankee from Ohio, you know,
yep.
and I know you're a liar. You know, I know you know you probably threw that freight off somewhere, whatever. So, needless to say, we get done with the week, and we still got 3 drops on that we couldn't get off.
Everything closed.
Because he screwed around so long, you know.
Now, did he drive? Obviously, I don't know if he's qualified to, but did he drive before?
Oh, yeah.
He
was a 100-year-old driver,
super
knew
trucker.
everything.
Yep.
Yeah. And, you know, so we get back in, and he says, I knew you couldn't do it. I said, if I wouldn't have had you with me, I could have done it. You know, I said, you held me up. What do you mean by that? We got in a big argument, and I said, look, you want me to run the West Texas run? I'll run it. You want me to run South Texas run? I'll run it. But if you're going to ride with me, I'm done.
I'll do it alone. That's all. The only way this gets done.
And he said, I'll put you back on the West Texas run. I said, all right, fine. So I ran her about another 3 weeks, and everything with him was like button heads. He just couldn't believe that I was getting my runs done and being back home Thursday night or Friday morning.
Didn't he have any other drivers along the way that wanted to get home?
Yeah, he had drivers.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. He had drivers. Most of them were, you know, from other countries or something like that, you know.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you're going to run LTL freight, you got to get started in the morning.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and you have to call ahead. You know, you got to map things out. Well, we didn't have GPS.
No, not back then, yeah.
So you're grabbing a road map, and you're looking at the city maps, and you're planning this stuff out while you're loading it. You know? So this place is in a mall, so they'll probably be open late. You know?
So you were making the call, not necessarily preset appointments like it's so nice now that our dispatchers here do for everybody.
Yeah. And you were have to just think, you know, well, this place is like a little store out on some crossroad, you know.
At 3 o'clock in the afternoon is not going to be a conducive time when everybody's getting out of their first shift factory job or even offices that close at 3 o'clock. It's typically between 3 and 5 p.m. You want to be away from there and out in the industrial parks or the smaller locations.
Well, it went back to my Ford Motor Company days where you had to use your mind. Mm-hmm. You know, you had to mentally picture, okay, this place here I can get to at night, I can get to this place early in the morning, you know, and you had to arrange all that. Not to mention, you're having to load the load, you know. This guy gets 6 bottles of wine and you know.
And you had to keep track of it all on top of the responsibilities already of driving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and one thing I forgot to tell you about on the South Texas run, that week I was with Lewis, we had to deliver at the Galleria Mall. I don't know if you know what the Galleria Mall is.
I don't.
But the delivery is underground.
Okay.
In a tunnel. And you got to drive around in the tunnel. And at that time, your tires are scrubbing on the sides of the, as you're turning, you know, navigating.
They weren't as truck friendly back then, or didn't worry about it as much.
Yeah.
Not only was the caliber of driver different and actually cared most, I'm not saying all, but just the perspective of the driver's head, where it's an entitlement that they need to make this 30-foot wide space.
Right. They weren't truck friendly. And so you would back up to the dock and use the freight elevator to go up to the mall, and you might have 4 different stores in the mall on 4 different levels, you know. So
not the whole truck. You were putting it on carts and stuff, and you were putting it into the elevators and taking the pieces
right.
you needed up. Yeah.
Right. And usually 1 pallet at a time, you know.
Yep.
And very seldom did they ever get 2 pallets at any of these stores. But, you know, it was quite challenging.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah.
I had I worked at PFG in Kendallville, Indiana for a year. It was to the day. I started on this day, and a year later, ended on that day. Now, the reason I left that job was more the economy in 2008 crashed, and I could not make any money doing it anymore, and I was used to paying bills with a different salary. But one of my very first route did it for that entire year. Every single Monday morning at 5 a.m., I had to be in downtown Chicago, backed into the alley behind the Northwestern Medical University's building.
Yeah.
And in the bottom of that was a TGI Fridays. Yeah. And, of course, office staff and students and things like that. It was insanely busy. And they would get about 1,000 pieces. And I had to take that, and there was no freight elevator. It was, you put it on a 2-wheel cart, you bounce it into the back of the place, you get into the elevator with the cart, ride it down to the basement, and then you had to find the freezer and do that kind of stuff. So I'm pretty familiar with kind of the work you were having to do there.
Well, I caught the worst cold that I think I've ever had in my life, because you'd be in the trailer getting the stuff. You know, a lot of it was frozen.
Yeah.
And then you get out of the trailer.
In the heat.
And you break out in a sweat, and then you get back in the trailer in the freezing, and you get back out in the heat. And it was terrible. But after a month and a half or so at that, I decided I'm done with Louis Sparks and his head button stuff, you know?
Yeah.
So I got a job at the Holiday Inn as a courtesy driver, because DFW Airport was right there.
Airport shuttle.
So, and the Holiday Inn, the flight crews would stay there. So we would take the little yellow van, go to the airport, pick up the flight crews, bring them back to the airport, take the flight crew back to the airport.
Which that's a pretty steady gig, considering those are contracted rates directly with the airlines, because they're the ones picking up the tab for their employees.
Well, they tipped pretty good, too.
Okay.
Because I remember the first occasion was the one pilot, co-pilot, male, whatever.
Yeah.
He says, can we stop at Wendy's on the way to the motel? And I said, I'm not supposed to stop. And a $20 bill appears over my shoulder.
It's kind of like handing that bill of lading to that guy at 2:10, 2:15 p.m.
I said, can we stop? I said, I didn't say we couldn't. I said, I'm not supposed to. You know?
Yeah.
So I would make it a habit of getting a good tip and then just drive a little bit faster to get them back to the motel, you know.
To make your next round.
Yeah. And in between there, I worked as a desk clerk at the motel, too, you know, when there was no need for me to be a shuttle driver.
Jack of all trades.
Yeah. But I did that for a while. And then the couple that we moved down there with, the girl's dad died. Okay? Well, I was married to Beverly at the time.
Okay.
Rick's sister. And she got to thinking that if anything would happen to her dad, who she dearly loved, that she wouldn't be able to take it because she was down in Texas.
So far away.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we moved back to Ohio. And
Back to where in Ohio?
Van Wert.
Went to Van Wert, okay.
Yeah. And Jim Butler's dad gave me a place to live, rented it out to me.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And went to the bank and co-signed a loan for me so I could buy a car.
Damn.
Yeah. And, you know, came back and I went to work running Bub's Old South. So I attended bar for a while.
Nice.
And did that until one night Bub and me got into kind of a little argument, and I left there, and still have great respect for him, and he does me as well. But we just decided it was time to part ways, and I went back to driving truck.
Where did you land back when you were done there?
What's that?
What trucking company did you land with when you're done there?
Big Ed Conrad.
Aha! I wondered. I was going to ask you if you went back to drive for him at all.
Yeah.
But that's you got to give a guy. You have to give a guy credit who ended up with a couple tractors due to some outstanding repair bills or outstanding fuel bills, I guess it was, or whatever the case may be, to turn into such a longevity into this company where you just kept going.
Well, he eventually ended up with over 115 trucks.
Really? So he built it into.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and I'm proud to say I was his first driver.
Yeah, because you said he had just acquired those trucks and he needed somebody to go in them.
Action Motor Express.
Okay.
Yeah, and I believe it was a company out of Texas that he got the authority and everything from, you know.
Just bought it out from them?
Well, with fuel, you know, they actually owed him a big fuel bill.
Okay, I got it. Now I'm putting it together, sorry.
Yeah, so that's how he acquired it.
Okay.
And, yeah, he built it up to quite a company.
Yeah, that's very large.
And the company's still going today. It's just under different ownership and stuff, and you know, but yeah, we worked hard to build that company.
Yeah, and it sounds like you guys played hard too.
Yes, yes, we did.
You know, there truthfully nothing wrong with that. And one of the things that I had to when I started driving wrap my head around was, you come home and you still had a family there that wanted to go do things, even though you had been go all week long. That was a big adjustment for me to be able to make that transition coming home to do that. Now, at what point did you cross paths with the Plummer family outside of being married, obviously, and do a little bit of driving for them?
Well, in 1978, I had my own truck. And as I'm pulling into Sunoco, Fiber Drum, or Continental Can, Gripe, whatever they call it today.
Yeah.
I was pulling in, and a box truck backed into the front of my truck. Completely his fault. But I had to take my truck in and get worked on.
Okay.
So I took it down to Rusty Mace in Van Wert, and I said, I haven't had a truck this long, you know. I was hauling steel with it, and the steel haulers went on strike, and I just got over with this company, and I'm just starting to get out of the hole. And now my truck, he's going to have it for a month. I said, do you know anybody that needs a driver? And he said, well, Steve Plummer, you know, he's got a truck setting, it's harvest time, you know. He said, go see Steve. Well, I knew Steve because, you know, I'd run into him on the road,
Sure.
you know.
Yeah.
So I went and seen Steve, and of course he wasn't home, but his sister Beverly was, and that's how I got involved with her. And so I drove Steve's cab over International during harvest time while my
truck was
Chevy was getting fixed.
Yep.
Yeah. So, but I got involved with her at that time, and, you know, and then one thing led to another, but, you know, then at some point later, you know, of course we got together, me and her, and at some point later, you know, whenever I would get quit or fired from Conrad's, I would go drive for Steve, you know.
So now you had a backup plan.
Yeah. So I'd drive for Steve, and then I went to work for Steve Mox down at Rockford, running to California and back, solo. Most of the trucks he had running in California and back were teams.
You just did a solo?
I was doing it solo.
I was never, I did do a little bit of driver training.
I did team for a short while.
Yeah, I didn't like it.
Yeah.
I did not like it. Now, I enjoy being with my trainer just because I was learning, everything was new, and so my ADHD brain was constantly getting fed something different that I had to absorb. But I got stuck with a guy, did a special run for Corral Camp out of the company I worked for out of Wisconsin, and we were stuck for 2 weeks together in a truck straight. And I decided at that point in time that there would never be a case that I would ever do that again.
The woman I was teaming with, Sharon was her name, and she didn't like driving in L.A., and she was fine out on the interstate, but she had a wreck like 3 months before I got in with her, and she hit I don't know what it was, a couple cows or something out in the middle of Montana or somewhere, Nebraska or somewhere, a couple cows running across the road at night or something, and she hit them and totaled her truck out, and she was a nervous wreck almost all the time, but she couldn't drive in L.A. or no city. So
just be too much.
Yeah,
yeah.
So I always had to drive in the city.
Okay,
didn't bother me,
Yeah, no, I would say that I drive us through all the major cities if Emily and I go out of town. But the fact of the matter is, I just don't let anybody else drive. If I'm in the vehicle, I hate riding.
I don't like riding.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
Yeah. And my wife doesn't like me riding either.
Better for your marriage to keep that first day mentality. Mike just needs to drive.
Yeah.
Get in trouble.
Yeah, we've stopped in truck stops before, and somebody will say, "Oh, your wife goes with you. Does she drive?" I said, "No, she just tells me how to."
There you go.
Yeah,
that's the best way to do it.
Yeah. But yeah, then I started running for mocks, and I was running to Florida and back, and this was at the end of my marriage to Beverly.
Now, was this the same Florida runs that Rick was telling us about during his podcast?
No, I ran I was running them for Steve.
Okay.
The ones he's talking about. But, no, I was running for Steve Mox at the time.
Okay.
And I was running to Florida and back. And me and her were separated, estranged, however you want to call it. And things weren't going good between us. And anyhow, there's this spot in Georgia where I happened to meet my current wife and my final wife, and so I had nothing up here, so I moved down there.
Sell everything here and move down?
I had nothing
at the time.
Yeah, I had nothing.
So pick up, and you were able just to freely take off.
Yeah, I had nothing because me and her were split up, and
okay, and she, okay, never mind. I know how that works. Trust me, I've been through it twice.
Well, I actually did get the house.
See, I got nothing. But to the defense, I guess, of I just was here. You take it all. Just let me be free.
Yeah. Well, I did that the first time. But I actually did have the house, but I ended up getting rid of it.
Yeah. Gotcha.
And so I moved to Georgia. And I've been there ever since.
Now, did you move down there to the same area you're still at?
Oh, yeah.
Not same place. You've got a different place now.
Yeah, I've lived in 3 different places since I've been there, but all in the same town.
You've been there a long time.
Yeah, 32 years, I think.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah.
So just upgrading as you go along, essentially, try to get something. And you do have the farm now.
Well, we when I originally moved down, I moved in with her.
Okay.
And she had a 5-bedroom double wide on 5.5 acres.
Okay.
Okay, well, then we bought 14 acres down the road, 15 acres down the road, and I said, when I retire, I'm going to build a 2-bedroom log cabin back in there once all the kids is gone and everything.
You don't need the space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, well, unfortunately, I was on my way to Atlanta, on my way up here north in the truck, and I made it almost to Atlanta. I own my own truck again. At this point, let me back up.
Okay.
When I first moved down there, I started driving truck, hauling logs, and a guy approached me that I was hauling logs for, and he said, "I'm gonna sell you that truck." And I said, "Really? I don't want to buy a truck."
Not this again.
Yeah. So he sells me a truck that's got a bad clutch in it and a bad injector in it, and basically I'm just taking over payments. And so I put an injector in it myself out there. You know, it was a L10 Cummins, and I put the injector in it and, kept running.
Got everything going.
Yeah. And anyhow, at some point after about 5 months, he decides that he wants the truck back. So, of course, we had nothing in writing, so he just comes and takes the truck back.
Yeah.
So
not much legally at that point you can do.
Right. So I started driving it. I bought myself a truck, and I started driving back up and forth. But anyhow, I made it almost to Atlanta, and my wife called me and said, the house trailer's on fire.
Oh.
I said, what? She said, yeah. So I turned around, went back home, and the house trailer was burnt.
On fire.
Yeah.
And those, I mean, they just aren't built to withstand fire
Well,
all that well.
Yeah.
And I know this just from the simple fact, from the simple fact that in between one transportation job and this one, I was like, I'm done with transportation. I went and inspected homes at a mobile home factory. As they came off the end of the line, I had to go through, do the final check, and then I would have to be there with the state of Ohio's inspectors if it was being delivered in Ohio. And being set up for them to go through it with a fine-tooth comb, and they just aren't. And I'll tell you what, they're rated to go down the road at 60 mile an hour and not break apart. And we never have one break apart, but just the normal fire retardant and some of the different things are not required the same.
Yeah.
So,
well, it burned the center section out of it. Like the living room section.
Okay.
Both ends were still
intact.
But
so the fire department got there and saved it.
Yeah, well,
essentially.
but it was not livable.
Okay.
So at that point, we moved into a motel. Okay.
Ugh. See, everybody thinks that'll be fun, but it's
No,
only
it
fun
was
for a
'cause
little while.
My mother-in-law
Oh.
and my youngest boy, my youngest girl, and me and my wife.
Did they make you stay in one room?
No, we had I think 2 or 3 rooms.
Okay.
But anyhow, and I owned 2 trucks at the time.
Oh.
So, and I have no place to park the trucks except for right there at the motel, you know. And I got a driver for me, working for me.
And you got to run your business out of that hotel now.
Yeah, well, and I'm running back and forth, hauling Dannon yogurt most of the time, out of Minster, going to Florida, going to Georgia, to East Point. And so what am I going to do? So I got 14 and a half, 15 acres over here. And I got 5.5 acres over here with a burned up double wide. We're living in a motel, and it's cost me a lot of money just to live in a motel. So,
your insurance wasn't picking that up, or you just haven't got to the point where they're reimbursing you yet because you got to turn it in and
the
wait?
insurance company actually gave me a check for, I think it was like $78,000 for my contents on the mobile home. And my wife, I love her to death. She likes to throw things away. She actually threw the check.
Oh, gee.
In the trash.
So you had to get another one.
Yeah, we had to get a check.
Oh man.
Yeah.
That's one thing I think that I would. No way.
She's a hell of a kid, I'll tell you what. So we had to get the check reissued. But we decided, okay, we're going to build a house over here. Where we was going to put up a 2-bedroom log cabin, we're going to build a house. So we built a 5-bedroom, 4-bath, car-and-a-half garage. My mother-in-law made her a place over the top of the garage where she had her upstairs, where she had a bathroom, bedroom.
So you had a whole in-law suite for her up there, essentially.
Yeah, and then
what we would call that.
And then she had a rear stairway that came down to her kitchen. She had her own kitchen,
That's a nice setup.
Oh yeah, and then we had 1 bedroom, and then we had 2 bathrooms side by side, and then 2 more bedrooms on the end, and we had doors going out to a stairway that went down so the kids could come and go at night without bothering us, because our bedroom was downstairs.
So a license to sneak out.
Yeah, my wife drew up and planned this whole house.
So you guys did everything from the ground up as
Yes.
far as how you wanted it.
Yeah.
You see, now that's nice. I've built one house in my life. I've actually built
Well, I'd never
homes.
do it again.
But I was just getting ready to say that. I loved that house.
Yeah.
I got to pick every aspect of it out. Got to wrap that thing, Tyvek wrap it, heat pump. Made that as efficient as I possibly could. Plus, it was just something that I picked everything out essentially, or had help with, however you want to look at it. I typically got my way if I pushed hard enough.
Yeah.
But
well, my driveway back into here was like 1/4 of a mile.
So the driveway was a couple $100,000 to get put in there just to get going.
It was a gravel driveway, but I had them, every light pole that they put up, they had to put the electricity back in there. I had them put a pole light on.
Oh, so yeah, you can get them, dusted on lights.
I told the electric company, I said, I want a pole light on every pole going down there. So when you pulled in my driveway, it looked like you was pulling into a subdivision, but the only thing back there was our house.
Nice.
And then you had to drive across the bridge because there was a creek that ran through the property. You had to drive across the bridge to get to the house.
So I've always wondered, because I've seen houses out here, even on Gasser Road, that have to bridge the ditch that's right up next to the road. How much does that bridge cost to put in? Because you got to absorb that cost, don't you?
Well, we had to have, not just the bridge itself, but, the big tube that goes under. And then we had to have seawalls built on both sides of it because it was in the floodplain.
Okay.
Because the creek actually ran through over here, and then another creek ran across here, but our driveway went across the little sub creek. So yeah, it was quite expensive.
I bet.
And yeah, but anyhow, we get this house done, and it's nice. I mean, it's a show place. Okay.
Good.
So 2008 rolls around, and Obama's the president, and he changes the way that you can get house financing.
Okay.
So when I built the house, I already had the property, and I had paid on it for like 6.5 years. So I only owed another 3.5 years on the property. Plus, we had the 5.5 acres over here that's paid off. Okay?
So you got collateral to go into it and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Now we built a house, and we got what they call a balloon loan.
Okay.
So we got a 3-year balloon loan. At the end of 3 years, and the bank assures me, don't worry, at the end of 3 years, we'll write you a mortgage. Everything will be fine. So Obama comes in 2008, and he changes the way all these loans are written.
I think I remember this.
And since I was 1099, because I own my own trucks,
couldn't get financing.
I was not eligible.
Yep.
Even though the bank had assured me they were going to loan me the money to, get a mortgage for my house.
Well, that was probably, I'm assuming, right after the housing market had crashed.
They took my property.
They took all of it?
They took both properties. I didn't even know that the 5.5 acres was written in on the same loan.
Oh, wow.
Because it was paid for.
Wow.
And I only owed another 3.5 years on this property, but I still owed for the house.
So they just came in right out from underneath you.
The bank wouldn't accept payment from me. When my balloon payment came due, I said, what am I going to do? A couple months ahead of time, I said, my note's coming due. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it, So I made my last payment. I went up to the bank. I said, what do I do now? And they said, well, don't worry about it. We'll figure it out. And then after a couple months of sitting there not paying any payments, they said, well, you're not eligible to get a loan. You're not eligible to get financing. Well, my wife wasn't working. I was working.
Yeah.
And I got 3 trucks. I'm making money. But
you can't, because you're an independent contractor.
1099, you're not eligible for a loan. So we lived there for 3 years without making a payment.
Before they even said anything to you?
They finally put it up for a sheriff's sale.
Wow.
So in the meantime, I went to another bank, and I said, look, I want to buy my place back, And they said, okay. They said, we'll finance it for you.
Okay.
I said, okay. Do an in-house mortgage. Everything will be fine.
Yeah.
I said, cool. I said, what do I do? They said, go to the sheriff's sale and put in a high bid. So we camped out at the courthouse.
Waiting for the sale.
My wife, my daughter, and I, we got lawn chairs out in the courthouse.
Did you have a cooler, or did they not like that?
We're just sitting there waiting, They come out, and they called the first sale, and nobody bid, and so, it went back to the bank. They called mine, and I think it was $160,000 or something.
Okay.
I said, $160,001. He said, okay, you got it. I said, all right.
So there was no one there to compete with you?
No.
Nice.
So,
because sometimes that doesn't go that way. It
didn't go so good as what we thought.
Okay.
Because at that point, he said, give me the money. I said, all I got to do is go down to the bank. They'll write me a check. He said, no, you got to have it now.
Really?
I said, what do you mean? How can I have it now? I didn't even know what the price was going to be.
Yeah.
He said, that's the terms. He said, you are the high bid. You have to pay it right now. I said, you're not going to give me a half hour to run to the bank? I said, I can get them on the phone and they'll write you a check. He said, no, now, before we start calling the next sale.
Really? And then they just pull it off, and do they carry that now? Do they carry that over to another sheriff's sale at that point in time, to where you can go to that bank ahead of time?
No, the bank at that point, they own it.
Oh, that's dirty.
There's nothing you can do about it. So the bank decides they're going to sell it. Well, they sold it for like $385,000.
Well, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you had all the equity into it already.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Plus, they sold the other property, and I don't know what they got out of that. But anyhow, my wife's in tears. We go down to the bank, talking to our friend that we've known for 25 years. He said, don't worry about it. He said, find something, you know. My wife gets on the internet, and very day that we lost our house, she found the house that we're currently in. And it was the very last day that they were having it listed.
Really? Or the listing would expire?
The listing was expiring that day. We went down, looked at it, went back to the bank. The bank said, yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
So we moved and we bought that place.
Nice.
And we've been there 15 years now. And I actually have a mortgage, you know, no balloon bullshit.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was just a difference in a law that came through.
Exactly.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, it was just
Everything worked out. You got a good place down there.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I know you and I have had discussions where I know you enjoy your horses, you guys enjoy the animals, and they have to keep your wife company while you get out on the road, because you run mainly weekends. If you run double run, you'll come up middle of the week and then finish out the weekend on your final run. But typically Monday you're wrapping it up and heading back home.
Yeah.
So that, because you got other responsibilities down there, like the farm and things that you got to help take care of.
Well, my wife and my mother-in-law, they actually, I don't know how much dog food my mother-in-law goes through a month, because she feeds the raccoons and possums and everything. Anything that walks up into the yard
is getting fed.
Yeah, before it gets dark at night, she's carrying a bowl like this big, goes out there and feeds the animals. So, yeah, we're responsible for, yeah.
There's got to be a cheaper means to do that. So now you should just, I see all these commercials on my YouTube videos when I'm watching them at night and stuff like that. You can get farm fresh food for your pets now. So you can feed them the same thing that you had for dinner that night, and it'll only cost you $10 a serving for your dog.
Yeah, right.
So there you go.
Well,
we can drive this cost up for you, Mike. We'll keep you pumping them miles out.
I'm going to keep working.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. You don't strike me as a type that really is going to sit still and do nothing.
No.
It's just not that. It doesn't seem your nature.
I do when I get home. If I've had a rough week, it takes me a day or so to get rested back up.
Sure, yeah. I mean, that comes with time, though. I mean, I get that. I don't think it was 5 years ago I felt like I could still do anything I wanted to, wake up the next day, and I tell you, it's changed a lot in the last 5 years just for me.
I used to run 6,200 miles a week, going to California and back.
Yeah.
And now I'm pretty happy if I get 2,000 a week. But there are some weeks where I run 3,500,
Yeah, you'll put in a full week, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And you still, and to be honest with you, still safe miles.
Yeah.
I don't really have anything come through for you. You are one of my guys. I do love that you send me those panic recordings, because there's some good stuff, near misses you sent me that I've got to take a look at. But you encounter a lot of stuff at night. I mean, I think you and I constantly have conversations about, I know there's a situation in Ohio that was pretty hairy when you were headed south that one night with a motorcycle accident.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I enjoy our conversations that we get to have and talk about these things. Evidently, someone's placing a Walmart order at the house, because my phone's going nuts over here. I'm going to stop that. But no, I truly do.
I just wish that button wasn't so far up there to reach, because there's a lot of times I think, man, I wish Doug could see this.
It'd get you. So, as part of your partial retirement party or partial retirement gift, I can get you one of them claws.
Yeah.
And get you that little finger to stick up there, or maybe we get you a little switch that you pull down. Little hammer will come through and just whack that camera right there.
Yeah, instead of having a gear shift sticking up like this, I'll have a lever for my.
Yeah, that should work. But no, so I'm trying to think here. How long have you actually been with Logisticize? Is it the beginning?
Yes.
Okay.
So
that's right. Because you were at the dinner.
I was driving from, living in Georgia, and I was hauling for Eddie Egler, hauling Dannon yogurt products down to Georgia and Florida and back up, you know. And I was running that. And then we started going to Laredo, hauling meat out of Fort Wayne, going to Laredo and back. And there were some weeks where I would run 2 Laredos from Fort Wayne.
Back and forth.
And on my second one, I would end up back in Georgia.
Okay.
You know, the first one I'd go down and I'd come back up to Ohio. The second one I'd go down and I'd end up back at home.
Back over in Georgia.
But you wasn't there very long, you know. That's a hell of a trip down there.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, a lot of times you get down there to Laredo and you got to wait on a truck to come across from Mexico that they're going to transfer your load into, you know, because you're backing into a dock and they're going to unload you and put right on another truck going to Mexico.
And it's exactly what it is down there. It's a bunch of cross docks. They have a international zone that the trucks from Mexico can come just barely across the border.
Yep.
And they circle into a stretch of lots that, I mean, when I was with USA Truck, I was down there, but you have a lot of big companies that have drop lots down there that they allow those guys to take their trailers, go across into Mexico, make deliveries, pick up things. A lot of it's auto parts.
Yeah.
Most of it right there is auto parts. And they come back up. I mean, even
your reload coming back up a lot of times would be a cross dock load.
Oh, absolutely. You know, I waited 18 hours for sugarcane to come out of Mexico to make it to this cross dock so they could yank it off that truck, put it on mine to head up to Springfield, Missouri.
Yeah, me and my wife, we sat 4 days one time in Nogales waiting on a load of tomatoes that never did show up.
Really? That's bad. 4 days.
Yeah. But we would pick up a lot of broker loads for Cheap and Heavy Robinson.
Okay.
C.H. Robinson, for those that don't know, that's Cheap and Heavy. That's
and
what
just
that
as a
stands
disclaimer here, since we have dedicated routes with C.H. Robinson, I can tell you they've came a long way.
Well, this was a long time ago, but
they had a bad reputation. Even when I was booking freight at Hillendale Farms, which was not that long ago, it was back in 2020, C.H. Robinson's was still digging out of that moniker that you gave them because it was cheap freight constantly.
Yep. But they had it. They had the freight.
They did.
They had the freight. But you would pick up down there and haul back up broker freight. But the loads going down paid so good, you know, you didn't have to get rich on the way back.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly.
But so running that back and forth, but I wasn't making money.
Yeah.
You know, I had 3 trucks, had all 3 of them was on with him, you know. A lot of things happen. You know?
Well, I think anymore you get to a point where, and I know in today's environment, you can have one truck. You can be a solo owner operator, and you can make a decent living, a comfortable living, have a comfortable life. Until you get to 10 trucks, you're going to be digging a hole.
Yeah.
You have to have that volume in order to do it, to keep up with the cost to expand at that rate.
Well, the old saying is, if you got 1 truck, you need 3. If you got 3, you need 5. If you got 5, you need 7. You know, I mean, and it just keeps going like that.
And it does.
Yeah.
Until you get to that spot where everything's comfortable, and it's kind of where we're at here. I feel like we've grown since I've been here. We're up to 80 trucks, but we've kind of been there for 3 years now, and it's a good spot for us. We're not trying to go out there and buy 1,000 trucks and go bankrupt because we got to make all these payments. We're taking care of our customers. It's a steady, long haul. It's not short-term planning, and that's one of the reasons I'm here. I see that it's steady growth off small profit, doing the right things.
That's right. That's right. Well, I ran into an old driver that I knew down in Van Wert one day, and asked him what he was doing. He said he's working for Rick. And I said, "What do you mean, Rick?" I said, "Rick's got a company?" I had not known because I was divorced from his wife, his sister, and I was living in Georgia now. So I haven't had much contact.
Sure.
And
usually you don't in that situation.
Yeah.
And typically, I mean, me personally, I'm not sure I'd be able to go apply at my ex-brother-in-law's company.
You know, so anyhow, so Rick was in Haviland at the time, custom contacts.
Okay.
Yep. And I went up there with one of my trucks, the one that I was driving, and talked to him, and Rick said, "Well, it's up to Terry." And Terry came out and talked to me a while, and Terry decided to give me a shot. So even back then in the custom contacts days, Rick was still
safety conscious and still thought about things,
Yeah.
such as that. And that's quite a while ago. I mean, that's
Yeah.
before there's a lot of
Rick
regulations.
just put me to work because
Yeah.
I was his ex-brother-in-law. He said, Terry, you decide.
Yeah.
And so Terry decided to give me a shot. Well, they run my butt off. I think they was just waiting to see if I would say, no, I ain't going to do it. And they never heard that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've been with him ever since. And when we moved from Custom Contacts to Logisticize, I was right there with him.
Day one, yeah, and I should have. That was a dumb question for me to ask you because I was sitting
Now,
sitting there with you at the dinner where we celebrated you had been there since the beginning.
Yeah.
Actually having to talk with you.
Well, I went out of the owner-operator role, and I sold the last one of my trucks. I think I sold in 2012, and Rick gave me an opportunity to dispatch from my home in Georgia, picking up backhauls for the flatbedders.
Okay.
And so I did that for a while, but it didn't quite work out. What I thought was maybe a good load didn't always turn out to be a good load.
It didn't be a good load. Well, trust me, there's Rick's not changed much. He still second guesses and asks you about not every single one, but he will spot check and he will make you explain why you took this load.
Yeah.
And you just better have an explanation. And if it's good and there's thought put behind it, yeah, typically he's all right with it.
Well, yeah. But so it went from that to Rick says, this ain't going so good,
And just get your butt in the truck.
Yeah, but I do have a truck that you can drive, and me, I ain't gonna drive no damn Volvo. I'm a big hood kind of guy. I gotta have this, I gotta have that. I'm Billy Big Rig. I gotta,
Yep.
gotta have my Peterbilt. I ain't driving no automatic.
Yeah.
He says, I got a truck that you'll like. I said, okay, I'll come up and give it a shot. He had an 880 Volvo with a D16 motor in it.
You just tell me about this. I remember now.
I mean, that truck was just, it would climb a wall.
Yeah.
You hit the bottom of Jellicoe at 70 mile an hour, you go over the top of it 70 mile an hour. It was
If not faster.
Yes. And I fell in love with the automatic transmission. I mean, you get in a traffic jam, you don't get leg cramps.
I tell you what, Corral Camp had automatics. It was my first dealing with an automatic.
If you got it set up right.
Yep.
Now, I have driven some automatics that wasn't set up right. But like the one in my truck, I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, these are set for a good... our trucks are not set for pure fuel mileage. They do have some power to them, more so than other large fleets that I've been around and how they choke their trucks down. Now, we have to be responsible. We're a business, so there has to be some fuel mileage there because what's the largest cost in a trucking company? If you're operating one, it's your fuel.
Always a fuel.
So 1/10 of a mile per gallon across 80 trucks is thousands of dollars a month. And so there has to be a happy medium there.
Yeah. Well, when you're spending $100,000 a day on fuel,
Yeah, exactly. It's our largest expense, I'm pretty sure. Not unless it could be insurance after last year. Who knows?
It's typically always been fuel.
Yeah, it's usually your number one cost.
At least it was for me.
And it was for me as well.
Yeah. And second is taxes.
And thankfully, we all pay those. So we won't go into those stories.
Yeah.
No, but no, I know you've been here a long time, and I do believe I want to make this a two-parter. So we've got you all the way up to Logisticize, which coincidentally is where we're at with Rick on his 2 episodes. So I think it'd be a fun episode on the final one to have both you guys come in here. And I truly think I'm just going to kind of hold off for that and wait, get you guys both in here, talk about the Logisticize days, because you've been here for the entire journey, along with a couple other guys that were there. And I just think it'd be a good time. I enjoyed earlier the podcast with both you and Rick.
We need to talk about the motorcycles. That's for sure.
Oh, yeah. That's what I want to get into.
Probably need to get Kurt in on that.
Yeah, that would be a good time.
Because Kurt was... very instrumental in our motorcycle days.
Yeah, and that's what I've heard. Shoot, he was the first one to step in the building. In fact, he was the only one that was in this building before it was ever Logisticized, if I'm not mistaken, for John Deere.
And he, actually had face-to-face with a lot of our customers and face-to-phone or phone-to-phone with a lot of our customers. He built relationships.
Yeah.
And you know.
Some of which are still alive today. I mean,
Yes.
Honestly.
Yeah. He's got a thick Rolodex. I can tell you that. Yeah.
He's put in a lot of hard work to help build this company. I mean, I've noticed that just sitting back and watching. And Kurt, you know, sometimes, you know, and if not saying anything bad, sometimes has a hard time expressing it to the guys. Just not his strongest suit. But there's nobody here that works harder, in my opinion, than Kurt to make sure everything goes smoothly.
And he deals good with the customer.
He does very well.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. We went over there. I've been with a couple of visits with him to SDI, and we've sat down, talked freight, and just kind of get the scope of business and where we fit into SDI's business. And yeah, he does very well with our customers.
And one thing about him too, if a customer expects something that we can't give, he'll let them know.
Yeah.
You know, he's not going to promise them the moon. And, you know, he don't overpromise and underdeliver.
Now,
you know,
I think back in the motorcycle days, there may have been some overpromising, but it all got figured out on the fly.
Well, that wasn't because we wanted to overpromise. It was because we were forced to.
Business demand.
They would give us a certain timeline, and we had to make it work.
Yep.
You know, like, for instance, one time I went all the way to Key West, Florida, to pick up a frame.
Because that's all you needed.
A frame for a Harley Davidson.
Yep.
Now, do you know how much money it cost us to go all the way to Key West and back up? And that motorcycle paid the same as if we'd have picked up 10 of them at one place on route. You know, we had to go out of route to pick it up, but we got it because it was something that we needed to do.
Well, the frame has the serial numbers on it. So if you
number.
retrieve it, yep.
Yeah. And that frame had a log chain wrapped around it to the front wheel, and it was one of the biggest pains that I ever loaded. But we got it.
And before, like I said, before we get too deep into that, I think we're going to schedule this. It won't be for next week. Next week's going to be a holiday week, and we'll do something a little different for that. In fact, this is going to come out next week, probably on Thursday. Get it out there where everybody's still in the trucks or rolling in, so that will be a change. But yeah, I'm going to get into the motorcycle days. I've heard some good stories from Hauser. I've heard Todd talk about them. I mean, there's a few of the guys, and I'll hear them guys telling stories, you know, Kurt talking to the guys in his office, and just happened to overhear him when I was in dispatch when I first started, and I can't wait. I love hearing the motorcycle stories. I love hearing the situations you guys got yourself into and out of. But Mike, thank you very much for coming in. I know it's been a long road in front of this microphone.
Too many people.
No, I hope not too. I think it turned out pretty well. But we're going to wrap this one up, guys. I want you to enjoy your holiday week out there, or your weekend. This is going to come out Thursday, July 3rd. So if you're headed in, have a great holiday weekend. Hope you guys get to enjoy some time with your families. Mike, tell your wife I said hello.
I'll do it.
One of these days you have to do another call where she's on speaker again. I think one of the conversations we had, I was in the car, was all four of us. As Emily was in on the conversation, your wife, and we talked for quite a while. But I really enjoy our talks, get to do this. I look forward to doing the next one with you and Rick. I think that'll be a great wrap up for both of you to come through that journey with Logisticize. And I hope you have a great weekend now.
And my wife told me to be sure and tell everybody hi.
All right. Hey, everyone. Mike's wife says hi.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, salt of the earth, and she does keep him in check. I am guaranteeing you that. I hear her do it on the phone. So, best co-pilot he's ever had, and I'm assuming his sentiments will be in life as well.
Yes.
All right. Hey, everybody, you guys have a great weekend out there. Enjoy those fireworks. Look forward to the summer blast coming up, and hopefully anybody that can make it, we'll see you there. Have a good one, guys.
Yeah, you hear that? That ain't thunder. That's Logisticize rolling in. Headlights cut, small town night dust flies up in the neon light. Hauling miles with a heavy load, pulling up on the gravel road. Steel toe boots on a wooden stage, a little rust and a rebel rage. From the back roads to the show, when the engine starts, you know. Feel that rumble in your chest, like a diesel hard out west. We're Logisticize, rolling loud and mean. Red dirt rebels on the gasoline dream. Turn it up, let the tailgate drive. We don't slow down, we don't ever stop. From the back road straight to your soul. We came here just to lose control. If you're ready, let me hear you shout. Logisticize is rolling out. 6th Street ain't crying, a kick jump pound, booty, you stomping on southern ground. Cold drinks raised to the nights on fire, bringing heat like a flat out tide. No GPS on a rebel route, we don't ask where we don't have doubt. If there's a stage in a wild crowd, crank it up and we play it loud. Feel that shake in the floor, that's the sound you waited for. When Logisticize roll loud and mean, red dirt rebels on the gasoline train. Turn it up, let the tailgate drop. We don't slow down, we don't ever stop. From the back row straight to your soul, we came here just to lose control. If you're ready, let me hear you shout. Logisticize is rolling out. Well, Logisticize coming in hot, full tank fire, give it all we got. Let it rip like a midnight ride, bring in thunder you can't deny. From the black top to your hometown bar tonight, we're taking it way too far. So throw 'em up, let the whole world shout. Logisticize is in the house. Welcome to Logisticize 104, hosted by Doug Holbrook. Y'all ready? Let's ride.